Hello, everyone. I just want to check that you can all hear me this evening.
I mean, I can see you've gone live, I think now,
Yeah,
but
this is great.
it's showing that screen that I thought you you tried to get rid of.
Yeah. Brilliant. Here we go. I think we are actually on now. My
If
apologies, everyone,
you
for being slightly late. It's always good fun to just fuck around with this and get it wrong. Hello,
Mhm.
everyone. I just want to
It's
check
probably
that you can
to
all
save
hear
yourself
me
from
this
having
evening.
to do edit it live. You may as well just put that picture on if you want.
Yeah, I
I
think
think people
so.
can tell the difference between our voices. You'll be fine.
Yeah, I think it should be fine. So I'll pop that in. Oh yeah, the live chat's going mad now, so that is all nice. So good to see
There you go.
everyone this evening. And as I was saying earlier, thank you very much, MauLer, for coming on. This is like the second time I've welcomed you onto the stream, so that's
Hey.
always good. Yeah.
Well, yeah. Well, it's good to be here. I'm glad to have a chat with you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, we got off to a slightly stumbling start there. I think it was a bit slow, but yeah, it's good to be on now. So we were just chatting before we went live there about Rise of Skywalker and how excited we are about its imminent dump on the world.
Hmm.
And you were talking to me about the power of the Force and how that Rey and Kylo Ren are going to balance each other out and just make each other lovely and strong and perfect.
Well, the Force dyad is an idea that I think they've ditched now because too many people said that it. Like I think in test audiences, people were like, I think they said something like it's too confusing. And my take would just be that it's unnecessary by the looks of things. Like I don't know what they're doing. Is it just to sound cool? Like the Force dyad. It's
Yeah,
like, oh,
it's an odd one. Yeah, I mean, I get the point of it. They're trying to say like the light rises and the dark rises to meet it. That was obviously
yeah.
Snoke's take on it, but it did seem that it kind of cheats the whole idea that you've got to keep the force in balance and that you have to work at it. Now it's like some kind of self-correcting thing that kind of does it by itself, and it's like, well, what's the point in anyone coming into conflict then? The force is just going to spawn someone else who's equally strong.
I don't see how they managed to maintain it with the whole prequels thing. Anyway, the amount of Jedi versus Sith at that point, or good Force users versus bad, or whatever, that
Yeah,
was
were
unbalanced.
yeah were they just spawning new ones all across the galaxy and we just didn't
Or
know about them until
maybe
now?
Palpatine was like a level 10 and all of them were level 1, so it sort of balances out.
Yeah,
A
like
big.
one mega dark force user. Yeah, so
Then we had Snoke as well, so I don't know. Because he would have
yeah.
been alive during the prequel times, surely.
Well, you'd think so, yeah.
He's
And
pretty
funnily,
old. Pretty old.
we're
Pretty
never going to
wrinkly.
learn anything more about him, so that's always nice.
Don't you understand? He's not important. God.
Yeah, he's just a guy. He's just a guy, and it it
Just a guy.
it subverted my expectations as well, which is
Oh,
the
wow.
important
Great.
thing, you know. That's what we want at the end of the day, to just have our expectations subverted. Um,
He's
but
like actually ruined that phrase. I was talking about it in relation to something else, and every time I even want to talk about the concept, it's like, well, now we got to talk about Ryan Johnson.
the other thing I can't do now is talk about themes, because I've kind of
Yes.
I've kind of made that my hill to die on. It's like, I'm not talking about fucking themes when it comes to movies. I'm done with that. So yeah, now I have to talk about ideas instead, or concepts, just to vary it up.
Yeah, it's just in defense of really bad movies. You hear the word themes thrown around all the time. And it's like, okay, you can't just say it. Like, you have to actually talk about why they're well executed.
Yeah, I mean, my line on this has always been, and it still is, that you can have all the themes that you want in a movie, and that's fine. But like, you've got to have a movie that actually functions on its own merits. I'm not there to look at the themes of a film. I'm there to be entertained by the actual movie itself, and that's where so many of them fall down.
I was just going to say, by the way, according to your chat, I'm a decent chunk louder than you. If you want to
Okay.
right click my face
Yeah.
and just put the volume down a bit until they start to say that it's sort of leveled out, you should be all right. And
Yeah.
it
Kind of
still
brought you.
shows the weird portion of Discord if that's what you're going for or not. I'm not sure.
That is what I'm going for, because I want people to puzzle over what the meaning of it is.
The themes of this stream.
There are deep themes here, and you're just not seeing them. That's the problem.
Yeah, chat. Open mind yourselves. There
Yeah.
you go. I said that right.
I don't want to fuck with it too much, because I just know that it's going to cut the stream off, and then like before you know
I mean,
it
it kind of works. You can see my face and your face. I think they get it.
Yeah.
And it's the streamer mode enabled, meaning they know the stream is on.
Yeah, the theme of this, guys, is that there's me and MauLer, and we're talking to each other. So I think that's the important thing. Just listen to our dulcet tones, and don't worry too much about what you see on the screen. Hello, everyone. There's an awful lot of hellos coming in. But yeah, so anyway, I was obviously chatting with you about Rise of Skywalker there. Are you particularly excited to see who is going to prevail in the battle between Rey and Kylo Ren? Because I think this is a really close fought thing. Who could possibly win?
Honestly, man, like I've been invested since the beginning for them. Those two diametrically opposed characters with very fleshed out motivations and histories. I can't wait for them to talk about and to fight in an almost metaphorical sense their ideas and their positions, their teams, their loved ones against each other. Because in Force Awakens, that was more of a just like, they just met up with each other. That wasn't really anything. And then the second time they did it in TLJ, that wasn't the same. Who cares about that? This is the one with all of the splashing waves and the what looks to be 5 different battles they have in the film. I can't wait.
Would you describe it as celestially epic?
Bone chilling is probably what I would call it.
I can't even do that guy's voice, like epic. It's just, I can't cut it off as quickly. That's what happens when you're a drunken Scotsman. Everything has to get elongated and slurred. It's the cross I have to bear. But yeah, so I mean, I know we were chatting a little bit before the stream actually began, talking about the recent sort of developments. I know the Mandalorian is out at the moment, and it seems to be doing quite well. How are you feeling about that so far? I imagine you're up to date on it, like I am.
I think it was yes, I am. I think it was relatively controversial, as me, Fringy and Rags have been watching it as it comes out, and we thought episode 1 was pretty fantastic. Like a strong like 7, 8 out of 10 sort of thing. We loved all of the pieces of world building, which is like water in a desert, as a lot of people are describing it. Like, it's been so long since we've had anyone comment on how the world is. It's kind of crazy to think about, and there's a lot of room there to talk about why world building is important. There's a lot of people like, who cares about world building, that sort of attitude. Then you have
So on you go.
Following one dude doing his job in the galaxy. It's like, wow, we're so scaled down. This is so like interesting, just because of the fact that we don't have so many armies of spaceships and planets and explosions, and everything is high octane dramatic. It's just this guy with a pistol trying to collect bounties. Like, oof, I love it.
Yeah.
And then just I really liked how it was shot. I really liked the soundtrack, the time, what they did with the time they had in the first episode. So it was all really good. Then episode 2 happened, and it was a little bit plodding. Like, oh, we sort of took an episode out to just chill. He's kind of nothing really developed outside of his relationship with, let's say, Baby Yoda and the guy who helped him fix the ship, which isn't something I'm against. I was just like, okay, that's fine. Episode 3 is the one that everyone loves, and I had a couple issues with it, especially with how they like establish how the fobs work. Kind of destroyed everything in that episode in terms of how bounty hunters work. I have my issues, but everyone was like, oh, it's so good. And then episode 4 happened, and I was like, wow, we're right back to Disney Star Wars with episode 4. Nothing makes any sense. So it's just been a consistent decline, and I'm really hoping they can come back up with the last few episodes.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of had similar thoughts. Episode 2 kind of stuck out because it was like, wow, they're really piling on the busy work here, aren't they? It's like he's ready to leave in his ship, and oh no, it's been conveniently stripped, and he has to go to the Sand People to get the parts back, and oh no, they need him to go and do a quest to get a thing so that they can.
Felt very video gamey, actually.
It really is, and looking at him, how he's always upgrading his armor and stuff, I was like, this is like playing Destiny, man. Like, he even looks like a Destiny Guardian,
I was actually on board with that. I thought it would be cool as across maybe 1 or 2 seasons, he gets all of his armor, if you know what I mean. I thought that could have been cool. Just because, like, what TV show even does that, really? But, yeah, he just gets all of it by episode 3, and I was like, oh, okay. Outside of his, like, jetpack, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, they kind of got to that point where they were like, "Oh fuck it, just give him a complete suit of armor. It's nice and shiny, and it does look cool, to be fair." Um,
Yeah.
no, I going back to what you were saying about the world building, I think it does accomplish that pretty well because it's like, oh, okay, we get to see this world where the Empire's been defeated, but there's still kind of pockets of them here and there. There's like stormtroopers in kind of old battered armor, or an ATST that looks like it's been sat in the jungle for 20 years and it's all kind of corroded and stuff. It looks good. It's like, oh, okay, this is the kind of stuff that would go on after a massive empire fragments. There's going to be bits and pieces of things lying around everywhere.
Hmm.
Like that's good. I mean, episode 4, I can see why people went off it slightly because of that. It did feel very much like an adventure of the week kind of situation. Um,
There's so much wrong with it. I was tempted to consider making some form of a video, but I was like, I'm way too busy, and we've got more episodes to come, so probably not.
yeah,
But
the
just the amount of people who punch him in his helmet in that episode is really weird.
yeah, it's like it's armored. Like, why would you do that? It's not going to do anything to him. The
Yeah,
casting
even like the weird grunt soldiery people. There's one point where one of them punches him in the helmet. I was like, surely your fist is fucked, but okay.
Yeah, when you're like an ex-cage fighter, I think you can just do that. That's why I thought the casting was a bit of an odd choice, like Gina Carano. Is it Carano or Carano? I never know how to say it.
I don't know.
But I mean, they obviously wanted like a woman who was like big and burly for that kind of role, and it's like you're not going to get that with a normal actress. So you have to go to like bodybuilders or UFC
I mean,
fighters or
it's
whatever.
Star Wars. Just give her like, I don't know, special gauntlets that allow her to punch armor. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
because like you've got someone then who can't really act, but they look impressive, so it doesn't work all that well. Um, but yeah, I've still got some hopes for it, and I like the
Yeah,
feel
I do
of.
too.
I like the fact that it feels like it opens up that feeling of adventure again that you used to get with Star Wars, where it's like there's a whole galaxy for you to explore, and you can go to all these different planets, and there'll be different things going on in all these places. Whereas that's what we've lost with the Disney trilogy. It feels really small now and really
Feels like you're in a
focused.
solar system with about 5 planets.
Exactly, yeah. And like 4 or 5 ships, and that's all it's come down to. So this at least restores that feeling of adventure with Star Wars. So that in itself is a good thing. And I think the Mandalorian character is quite cool. I quite like him.
I like him too. As of episode 4, I'm feeling a little iffy on it. He confuses me now. And it's funny because me, Rags, and Fringy actually rewatched episode 1, or at least the first half of it, just so we weren't like crazy. He feels very different. He's so stalwart and like efficient in episode 1 for the most part, but in episode 4, it's like what I would call, because I've seen a lot of TV. I feel like they've really rushed the whole like cracking hard surface sort of thing. Like him maybe spending so much time with Baby Yoda is starting to soften him a little bit, which I'd be okay with. But it's like it's happened so quickly. He's like already and just the inconsistency. So like how there's that little girl who walks up to his little hut and he like freaks out and aims at her, and then they're like, whoa, 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 calm down,
Yeah.
to show that he's on edge. I'm like, oh, that's cool. But then earlier in the episode, there's those two guys who walk up to him and he's not even facing them, and he just says, "What do you want?" And I was like, wow. You'd think he would have been like the suggested fix I've had would just be they see him at a distance, and then they dock their boat, they walk up to the ship, and he's not there, and they're like, "Wait, what?" And then you just hear a gun cock or whatever behind them, and he's just like, "What do you want?"
Yeah.
That sort of thing is what I'd expect. But I was confused. I was like, "What if they had a gun, dude?"
I know he's kind of like on edge, and wary when the script needs him to be. And
Hmm.
by a similar token, like if someone did pull a gun on him, and he didn't react initially, it would be, they're not really intending to shoot him. They've just got him covered, and then he waits for some convenient moment to like strike back and disarm them. But they wouldn't somehow they would magically not fire the guns and just shoot him dead. It's yeah, it's little things like that kind of make you think that's just plot convenience at work.
I thought it was weird how, from my understanding, he had like a big interest in sort of making sure that that baby was taken care of at all costs, because he essentially sacrificed his position in the guild and to a degree his position with the Mandalorians. I don't know if that's going to have more repercussions or not, but So you'd think that like that's his most valued possession right now, and then he's like, "I'm interested in this girl. Hey, barkeeper, take care of my baby." It's like, whoa. And then the funny part is she doesn't. Baby Yoda just walks off.
This is what he does though. He kind of allows Yoda to just like follow him around,
Yeah.
often through quite dangerous environments, and he doesn't even check to see if he's still there because he's not very big and he can't walk very fast. But then somehow he always manages to keep pace with him. So it's
Remember how like Baby Yoda walks up to like that dog creature alien thing, and it's like got a really big mouth? I was like, what if that thing just bit him?
yeah, like that's him gone. Like it'd swallow him in one bite, basically.
And I don't know. I get confused about what exactly. Because I would have liked to have seen him be overly protective, and that we figure out gradually that he's doing it because he kind of sees himself in Baby Yoda or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think it'd be great content, but he's just casually just like, stay here for like when he was gonna leave him in the ship. I was like, really, really? I don't know.
Yeah, like he's not trustworthy. Like he's obviously interested in like pressing buttons and doing things. It's like, why would you assume that he's just gonna sit and
It made
quietly
more
mind his
sense to me when
business?
he had the carrier, because I was like, at least he has remote control on the carrier, and the carrier is like a shield. It can be anyway.
Yeah,
And
and
I
you
was like,
can.
that makes more sense to me. But now he's just walking around like anyone could just run and grab him.
Yeah, yeah, totally. And at least with that carrier, you could seal him in it, and it's like, well, he can't go anywhere now, so that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like you say, that it's hard to know what his motivation is. Like he just seems to be protective of Baby Yoda because he looks cute and he wants to
Yeah, I'm
protect someone.
hoping the rest of our episodes will sort of flesh that out a little bit more. Just give me a bit more. And the fact that he was like, yeah, we'll go to this planet. We can stretch our legs for a few months. I was like, but those fobs can let you track anyone from like many planets away. Why would you think it's safe? And at the end of the episode, he's like, oh, I guess he's not safe. I was like, well, we already do this. Like, why?
I,
You
I,
know this better than anyone. You're a bounty hunter.
yeah, I'm a little unclear on how they even work. Like, do they just beep more when you get close to the person you're tracking because they don't seem
It
to have
does
much
seem
to
that
them?
way. Everyone seems to be able to use them. I don't quite get it, but
Y-
apparently that's how it works. Yeah.
Yeah, because whenever I see them, they're just like a kind of thing that you hold, and it's got one flashing light on it. It's like, okay, what does that mean? Like, am I getting close? Am I a million miles away? I just like the idea
Mm.
of them like flying randomly around the galaxy, and it's like, nah, it's beeping slow now. We'll have to go somewhere else. See if we get closer. It's like you couldn't have given us a more efficient way.
And then you got this huge crowd of bounty hunters that have all established, like, oh, we want that baby. And he escapes, and then he's like, hope they don't have fobs.
Yeah.
But they clearly do.
Well, Apollo Creed already told him, like, everyone's been given a fob for this bounty, so he knew already. When
Yeah,
he
there
when
were
he actually,
people who he had to fight off on the planet who are also bounty hunters. Like, there's such a. You know what I mean about the whole, like, he seems very careful to me, but then in episode 4, he seems like an idiot, kind of.
yeah, and I don't know if it's different writers, but yeah, I think it's Favreau that's writing all the episodes so far.
I think so too, but the directors are changing. Maybe that has an influence.
Yeah, possibly. But yeah, it's a show that's got potential, and I'm genuinely like more interested in watching that than I am in any of the movies. It's kind of
Oh,
gotten to that
absolutely, yeah.
point. Like
Um, at least from the perspective of like enjoying good content, because I think I'll have a lot of fun with episode 9 up until the final scenes with Palpatine,
Mhm.
with whatever they will be. Like, I think I'll enjoy it by laughing at all the stupids, but as soon as they do anything that fucks up the OT, I'm going to be annoyed, probably.
Yeah. God, it's like, is there any aspect of the OT that they won't bastardize or that they won't steal? This is a question actually that I got asked in a previous stream. It was when Bolstrek and I were doing it, and someone said like, who do you think is actually worse, JJ or Ryan Johnson? And honestly, like I struggle to answer that because like for me, Ryan Johnson is a man of bad ideas, whereas JJ is kind of a man of no ideas, and I can't honestly figure out which is worse. I don't know whether you've got some wisdom to share on that one.
So I'd probably try and break it up as being what do we value the most about the OT, and then you'll split them up into like so Luke Skywalker as a character and a hero and his journey, Han Solo as a character, as a hero, as his journey and his sacrifice in Empire, for example. Vader as this great imposing villain who managed to come through at the end for the love of his family. Like all of these significant elements, and you're like, okay, so how many of them have been destroyed and by who? Now, a
Yeah.
lot of people say that George Lucas destroyed the Force with midichlorians. I think there's a discussion to be had there as to exactly what kind of damage was dealt. I don't think it was as significant as, for example, turning Luke into a coward. Like, that's next level. And then you're like, so what's worse, turning Luke into a coward or turning Han into like a deadbeat dad who's incompetent at smuggling? It's like, it's kind of tough. But most people I think these days go with Luke. But then you're like, but what's worse, those or bringing Palpatine back, making Vader's sacrifice and the victory of Episode 6 null.
Yeah, I think almost the damage that JJ does is more subtle, and you kind of have to examine it in more detail. But then it goes deeper.
Sure.
Whereas, yeah, with Ryan, it's almost like, yeah, that's stupid, that's stupid, that's stupid, and you've kind of bastardized a character that we used to love, but it's very immediate and very obvious. Whereas it's a bit more insidious with JJ, and it's like he fails more competently somehow, or he fails more subtly with his movies. And I think it's going to be interesting to see how badly this one fails, because he's got nowhere to run with it now. He can't be like, oh, well, I'll just pawn it off to another director now to resolve all this stuff. It's like, no, I have to do it, and there's no one else.
I was thinking to myself, like, who would I have gotten for directing Episode 9 if I had the choice? It's like, I think it was probably going to be screwed no matter what.
Yeah, I don't know if there's anyone that could have saved it, to be honest. Or even directing isn't so important. It's just having good writers who can craft a decent story with it.
True.
Because
I guess I'm referring to like director writers because that's what it's been throughout all of them now, and the director writer.
yeah, and I don't know why they keep doing this, because what happened to just getting really good writers who do their writing bit and then someone else
It's
directs it?
funny. Red Letter Media have been advocated to let writers be directors because of the unified sense of vision and coherency, but it's just that these examples have not been helping.
Yeah, you know, I think this is, you can kind of draw that distinction as well, like with these guys, because some of them are pretty competent directors. They're just horrific writers. Like Ryan Johnson's probably the classic example. You know,
Sure.
visually, I think Last Jedi was mostly fine, and I didn't have any complaints over how it looked or how the shots were put together. Most of them were perfectly serviceable. It was just the writing that was awful, and that's what resulted in a terrible movie. But then, you know, when I think about, oh, what would happen if he was to direct an episode of The Mandalorian, I'm like, well, it would probably be fine as long as he's not allowed to touch the script and he just has to direct it as is. I think it would be all right.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is the difference. But yeah, like someone like JJ, he's capable of directing a flashy looking product. That's why we've ended up with things like the Star Trek movies,
Yeah.
which look good, but they're just terrible stories that don't have any relation to the original source material.
It's just crazy to know that he considers himself like a huge Star Wars fan. It's just like, why did you do this then?
Yeah. It's like, what aspect of Star Wars are you a fan of? Because it's clearly not the OT characters. Yeah,
But there
some
we
people
are.
people mentioning here in chats, Ryan Johnson directed some of the best episodes of Breaking Bad. Yeah, they were quite good. I wasn't a huge fan of The Fly, but
Yeah, no, same. But I would even go as far as saying I remember and like the direction of Ozymandias, so like I'll give it to him. I'm fine with that, but I will not allow him to have any credit for writing because he's terrible.
yeah, yeah. There's another question here, actually. I wonder if Mando has to change Baby Yoda's diapers. This was one thing I appreciated about Episode 4, actually, because I was questioning, like, okay, well, if he never removes his helmet, like, how does he eat and drink? But then it's like, okay, he just doesn't do it around other people, so fair
I
enough.
wanted to like that up until he did it right in front of a bunch of kids.
Yeah.
It's like, what the hell, dude? Like, what if one of them looks up? You've broken your whole thing.
Or that woman just happens to walk right by the window. It's like, oh, fuck,
Yeah,
no, I didn't think you would do that.
it was cool when you had him explain all of it. Like, it was like, oh, I get it, I follow. But then he just casually pulled it off. I was like, that's how you've been doing it this whole time? Like, yeah, the second anyone sees him without his helmet, he's not allowed to put it back on. Like, Wow, just risking it a little there, buddy. I don't know.
And what's the stuff? I'm just killing the person who saw him and then just, quietly putting it on. It's like nothing happened there. It's cool. And just go on his way. Um, yeah. Still people talking about Ryan Johnson
Well,
directing Breaking Bad. I know he's obviously got Knives Out at the moment.
oh, we're
It's
waiting for that one, aren't we?
yeah. I've people have asked me about this, and I've got this horrible feeling deep down that it's somehow going to be good, and I'm really worried about that because I don't want to have to give it a good review. But like, if it is,
Well,
you know,
we'll have no choice
it it,
if that's the case.
it seems like it's going to be right up his alley because he's clearly not suited to doing Star Wars stuff. He's not suited to doing big epic adventures, but probably like a little self-contained, quirky mystery type thing would probably work well for him if there's anything he's going to be good at. I think it's
Hmm.
going to be that. Um, I'm just I'm just waiting for all the kind of smug like political statements about right wingers and stuff because I think he's made a few comments about that already. Um, so we'll see. People are asking, did he write Knives Out? I don't actually know if he wrote it or not. I'm not sure if he
I'm
was just
assuming he did. I can check though.
yeah.
Yep, written and directed. He's the sole credit.
Okay. Hmm. Well, we'll see then. I hope MauLer does an unbridled rage with praise of Knives Out. Rage and
Raged praise.
yeah. I think you could probably end up doing something like that for Endgame because it seems like the kind of movie that you would get angry and happy about at the same time. Like it had lots of good and bad to it.
I do want to do something with Endgame eventually. I'm not in a rush right now because I've got other projects I want to tackle. But that we've got like a 6 hour EFAP discussion all about all of the good parts and bad parts of that film.
Yeah.
There's a lot of bad parts. I'm not gonna lie,
Yeah. I'm actually
unfortunately.
planning to do a video where I fix Fat Thor
Oh yeah.
and try and rewrite his character, so that he still functions the same way within the story, but like he's not a jokey farce of a character anymore. So
Hmm.
I'm going to try and do that, and try and fix a few other characters. I think my ultimate target would be Luke from Last Jedi. It's like how could I make him somewhat good and believable, and yet still have him do the same things.
Yeah.
Um, One thing I was meaning to ask you about actually was Watchmen. I don't actually know if you're watching that or if you're up to date with it or what.
I have not been. The problem is that I don't know the source and I don't know much. Like I've saw the movie once, but I don't really remember a lot about it.
Yeah, it's it's been an interesting one. I think the first few episodes I was just dismayed by it. Honestly, like it seemed to have absolutely no relation to the comic or the movie. And I was just like, God, this just seems like absolute pandering. But it's kind of slowly worked in more elements from the comic per episode, so it's kind of gradually improved in that sense. But it's still not really getting high marks from me at the moment. I mean, I've only reviewed the first episode. I don't know if I can be bothered doing all of them, but
Hmm.
yeah, it's one of
You've
those.
been keeping up with it though, have you?
Pretty much, yeah. I think I'm one episode
Mm.
behind. I've got one to watch. The last one I saw was like a flashback one where the main character Angela gets to see like her grandfather when he going through his sort of younger life. She basically takes some drugs that allow her to experience his memories almost. So it's kind of it's a well shot episode, and it kind of shows him, in the 1930s and 40s, being a
Hmm.
crime fighter back then. And obviously he was black, so there's like a lot of prejudice and stuff that he faces. So it was a fairly well done episode, but again, it just bears no relation to the comic at all. Um, People saying here, Watchmen, the film was excellent. I agree, actually. I like it, and I am gonna do a video sometime saying like it wasn't as bad as people give it credit for, because
I hear so much on both sides of that argument. I need to listen to like a debate between two people who fall on either end about that film because I don't know what's going on with it. I don't know if it's because of adaptation reasons or because of the film itself. But yeah, I feel out of the loop on whether or not that film nailed it or not.
I mean the comic was, obviously it was really long, and they had to cut material out of it to get a coherent story, but they kept the main thread of the narrative in it, and for the time it was made, especially. Um, it, 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 most other comic book films were already going into that Marvel mold where everything was, happy, and there was always the good guys always won, and there was no kind of moral ambiguity. This was like, much more complex, and it gives you that kind of question at the end of like what's preferable, like a comforting lie or like the horrible cold hard truth. And I
Hmm.
think that was a pretty bold thing to do in a movie at that time. And yeah, I quite like the way it was shot and everything. I think Snyder had a good sort of creative vision for it, and he was able to fulfill it. Obviously it didn't do well at the cinema, but no, I really liked it, and I'd like to do a proper review of it sometime.
Have you seen the stuff with the Snyder cut?
um I've seen the
As in the Snyder cut of Justice League, I mean.
I've never seen anything of it. I've just seen the kind of Twitter campaign to get it brought out.
Yeah, like several actors have talked about it, like Ben Affleck and Gal Gadot and well, whoever else is involved. And wasn't there like apparently it's 3.5 hours long and it does exist. Just I
I
find it fascinating, the whole thing, and it
uh,
seems like they could probably make some money releasing that. To be honest with you.
I'd love to see it. If there's anything that's needing done, I would imagine the special effects haven't been finished, because they wouldn't be. Those are like the last things to be done on a movie. So they would probably
Hmm.
still have to pump a fair amount into it. Um, but then how do you release it? It's like, well, here's a completely different version of the movie we've already made, you know?
I suppose you could call it the director's cut. It's just not the continuity cut. Assuming the well, that would be awkward, wouldn't it? Imagine being brought on and then they're like, you gotta use this one as continuity, despite all the fans seeming to prefer the director's cut. You'd be like, okay.
Yeah, I mean, God, the DCEU is such a mess at the moment. I don't even know what's canon and what isn't. You've got movies like Joker coming in, which don't seem to fit into the narrative anywhere, but they are amazing and they've done really well. So now they're going to be like, shit, like how do we work this in? How do you even compare something like that to Aquaman or Justice League? It's like complete opposite ends of the spectrum.
Um, yeah, Joker. By the way, would that be your pick for film of the year, or are you resting between that and like? Have you seen The Irishman?
I haven't seen that yet though, so I can't make a ruling on it. I need to set aside like 2 days to watch it. But
And what was it? The Ford versus Ferrari as well as another.
yeah, I really like that. I mean, it's not movie of the year for me, but it was a really solid, enjoyable film that's had great characters and a lot of heart to it. I think, which God, I really
So you're
appreciate that.
telling me then that movie of the year is either going to be Joker or Rise of Skywalker. That's where we're at.
Pretty much, yeah. I
Hmm.
think like Rise of Skywalker could take it. In terms of the entertainment value I'm going to get out of it. Rise of Skywalker could win. Like,
And
uh,
what a way to like cap off 2 years as well, because like it's almost to the day that my first video actually gained any traction. Like the release of Rise of Skywalker. Like so some people, I'm seeing it on a midnight release because I am actually invested in seeing how much the train wreck is going to be. Like especially after reading the leaks, and some people are like, "Oh, what's like the significance?" I was like, "It's the sequel to the film that my channel really got started on. It's kind of a weird sort of like bookend, you know?
yeah.
Like goodbye saga that got destroyed." And
Your journey in the world of YouTube has got more of a character arc to it than the actual Skywalker saga.
yeah, and it's cool because like it'll be the band's gonna all get back together to take down episode 9 for sure. Like I don't think, especially after those leaks and the validity of like a lot of the claims about the screenings and the quotes given by different actors and stuff, it's just like, yeah, if this film is good, it would have defied all expectations and information that we've been given.
Yeah.
But who knows? Maybe.
It really just, I think the whole thing just smacks of like panic. When like it's almost like a writer that loses all their confidence and suddenly they've got no idea what works anymore and what doesn't, and so they just start throwing all kinds of ideas around, but they have to meet a deadline, and so
Hmm.
they've got no clue what to go with, and so they turn to like other people for advice, like, does this work, what should I do, and then they get a whole bunch of different conflicting advice and they try to work all of that in to their end product, and so you end up with this, which just seems like a bunch of different things desperately trying to come up with some kind of narrative that will try and give meaning to the previous two movies. And yeah, I cannot see how it can possibly work, especially considering the leaks that I've heard. It just seems like a disaster in the making, really.
And we'll all be there to see it.
Yeah, it's great. Like, God, I can't wait to review it. It's going to be brilliant. What I'd like to do actually is kind of work through a few of the super chats, if you don't mind, because
Yeah, go for it.
they are building up quite rapidly. So I'll answer a few of these here. I am trying to keep an eye on the chat and super chats and talk to MauLer at the same time. So my multitasking abilities are not that good after a couple of glasses of whiskey. But yeah, Devanor says, "Drinker, you diligent and dainty drunk, you hear me say. How did you meet the EFAP gang?" It was through you, I believe, MauLer, wasn't it?
I think I reached out to you.
Yeah.
Twitter DMs. I think that was it.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. I think I made a couple of references to you in one of my videos or something, and perhaps you heard of me that way.
I'd seen a couple of your videos, and then someone told me to reference me, and I was like, oh well, maybe we can jump into something. I don't know.
Yeah, but I remember you got in touch, and I was like, I don't believe this is the real MauLer. So it's like, contact me on Twitter or something, so I know it's you. And then you did. I was like, oh shit, that's real. So yeah, did the first EFAP way back in like June or July or something.
Oh man, what did we cover on that one?
We had
you've been on a couple now.
We had the Doom guy who was obsessed with the pole that you.
Oh, the
you swing
sausage
from.
man, yeah.
The sausage raider, yeah. The sausage wrists, yeah, with the big sort of gauntlets on.
Yeah,
that was great. And we had one of the guys. We had that guy come on actually onto the EFAP to talk to us.
We did as an EFAP mainstay now. I think we're over 10 in terms of people we've covered. Or people who disagree with us being brought on to have a discussion.
Yeah, I like that. I think it's good for them as well, because most of the time they seem to be really good sports about the whole thing, and they usually end up coming away. Everyone appreciates them giving their time to talk about their position and, not get offended by it. So no, it's good. I think that's probably the longest I've been on as well, because it was like daylight when I started and it was daylight when I finished. All through the night we went, and I was really the worst for wear because I got through pretty much a whole bottle of Jack.
Well, I think 4 out of the 5 recent EFAPs have all been capped at 11 hours and 55 minutes. So,
okay.
It's been getting a little crazy.
I still don't know how you did the 24-hour one.
It was 29.
Oh Christ, yeah. You had breaks though, I take it. You kind of did it in shifts or something.
29 hours, not including 2 half-hour breaks.
Wow. I take it you slept for a couple of days afterwards.
I can't remember.
It's just a blur. It's a blur of EFAP.
I was put on charge.
Yeah. There's a question here for you actually, from David Morris. MauLer, when I said a few EFAPs ago that alt media would become the mainstream, I meant we will replace them. It's a Six and Hammer 666 quote. I'm not sure if that means something to you.
I mean, if they're referencing like sort of YouTube and internet sources, will completely obliterate eventually like cable and CNN and all them like one day. I'm not going to say it's impossible. It just seems like CNN and people like that, they would probably evolve rather than die. They would like alter how they, like, for example, they would come to YouTube. They would move to wherever the new ones are, and their name would manage to carry enough fans that they would probably survive, if not be shrunk a little bit. But perhaps that's what he means, and yeah, it's possible. Who knows?
Okay. I do sort of think that traditional critics of movies and TV shows and stuff seem to be getting less and less respect and less traction, whereas channels like ours.
Crazy take, but a lot of movies that were made when movie making started would now be like laughed at and just ignored in terms of like the craft, because it's moved on so significantly. I think the same goes for critical analysis. Like, back in a lot of the oldest stuff is just like, well, you didn't really say anything here, and it's like a paragraph. Who cares? Like, Patrick Willems refers to it as traditional reviewers, and he thinks that like they're great and stuff. And a lot of the time, I'm always like, oh, it just leaves me confused most of the time. Like, they'll use flowery language to sort of assess the film broadly, and then I'm like, you literally could have been talking about any film, and I wouldn't even have known.
Yeah. They give that an extremely high level view of a movie most of the time. And it doesn't really tell you much about it. Where obviously, you're kind of the opposite end of the spectrum, where you go into great depth analyzing a film.
Yeah, just like to talk about the mechanics, right? And to be like, if this is how it's like reverse engineering something. It's like you have the script originally, and it has all these notes and how things are going to work, and then you essentially draw that script and all the notes and all the thoughts out of the end product and analyze them. You're like, oh, clearly they were thinking that they wanted to do this. That, like, say for example, a throwaway line. We know why they're used. We know what they were trying to achieve, what part of the scene later that they set up or something, and then we can talk about how throwaway lines are done and how you can be more subtle or how you can be more efficient and stuff like that. And someone might be like, no, it's just a random line. Be like, it's not. Like, we're trying to say, like, this is how scripts work. This is why you do these things.
I mean, do you find that, like, having looked at movies like this and broken them down to such basic elements, it becomes harder to just enjoy them for what they are?
I think there's validity to that. I found myself more aware of errors, or even what's the opposite of an error? A praiseworthy element, let's just say. Something happens and you go like, oh, that could be a setup for later, and then it is, and you go, oh, it was. Hey, that's pretty good the way that they did that. If you're doing that in the moment, it's almost like you're on a separate wavelength than just sitting there going, that was entertaining, that was fun, that was, just like the watcher, if you will. But it's not. I don't think it's a bad thing at all. It's making me like a lot of stuff that I already liked. Just I enjoy more by noticing these connections and seeing how well written it is.
Yeah.
And that's okay with me. If it's like a transition of it takes you out of being passive into like an active enjoyment sort of system. It's weird to explain, but it's helpful for analysis, and it's taking films like, let's just say, Hot Fuzz, for example. You can watch that several times and be like, oh my god, look how clever that was, and look how this came into this, and how well executed this is. Then you watch Batwoman and you're like, oh my goodness. This is a disaster. They had so little time to even screw it up.
Yeah, Batwoman's something else. Yeah, no, the thing that came to mind for me, it was something that you mentioned once in one of your older reviews of Resident Evil 7, when you did that.
Oh yeah.
And you said that when it's really immersive up to a point until you start noticing the strings that the developers are having to pull in order to make certain things happen, and then you realize, right, it takes me out of that immersion, and I realize I'm just playing a game again, when things are just completely contrived for a jump scare or for a certain character to be in a certain place at a certain time. It's the strings that they're pulling, and I think that's what you see when you start to break these things down a bit in more detail, and that kind of takes you out of it a little bit. But yeah. Trashtown TV was saying, Disney Star Wars was doomed from the beginning because the main character is a Mary Sue, portrayed by a bad actress who has no charisma, and we just don't care what happens to her. I can't think of a single thing in that sentence that's wrong, to be honest. I think it baffles the mind that there's people still out there that are defending Rey as a good character, who's well written and who has flaws.
I'd love to speak to people directly and just be like, honestly, like, so why does she do anything she does?
Yeah. I saw a great meme, actually. I guess it's an older one, but it's like Rey holding, like, she's been presented with a Rubik's Cube, and she's like, what's that? I've never seen this before. And then, like, 20 seconds later, and she's holding it up, solved, and it's like... Yeah. That's what she's like, nothing challenges her.
I like to think, because a lot of people want to really fight back on the whole Mary Sue label, and like all I've got to really say is, like, if she doesn't actually qualify in the very certain terms of how the Mary Sue moniker was created, I don't think it would matter anymore. That label's pretty much going to be morphed to her. She is the character that people are going to reference. So say, for example, people say, like, it's clearly not J.J. Abrams inserting himself into the story. And I'd be like, oh, well, I don't think it needs to be at this point. It's like, but that's a key component of Mary Sue. And it'd be like, oh, okay, well, the label is only supposed to be shorthand. It's only supposed to, for me to say to you, this character can solve any problem the plot throws at her. This character is beloved by heroes and villains. This character is like very sociable and talented with everything. And so instead of saying all of that, I just go, they're Mary Sue. And then you go, oh, I know what you're talking about immediately. And so if someone says, hey, but she doesn't qualify exactly to those terms, I'd be like, I don't know that many people even do.
Yeah, I mean, it's
in
like,
writing.
it's not like we're in a courtroom where we've got to prove this thing like to the legal definition of the law or anything. It's like, yeah, like you say Mary Sue, you think of an idealized perfect character that can do anything. That's what you get, and Ray conforms to that absolutely perfectly. And it would just be great to like talk to the people who wrote her and just like say, like, why did you do this? Did you ever think like, you're not really giving her any flaws and all the things you traditionally associate with a character who's going on the hero's journey, you've just not done it. Do you not think that would have caused a problem? And I'd like to imagine this being like, what do you mean that causes a problem? I don't get it.
Well, it's just because what they'll do. They'll be like, well, she was captured in TFA. It's like, but she freed herself.
Yeah.
Like, it didn't,
She used the Force that she'd never heard of before, and she just like was able to mind control people. It's incredible. And like you say, I'd just love to get one of those people on, like EFAP or here or whatever, and just talk to them and just really
we
understand.
did have that long conversation with Major Lee. That was something.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen that one. I've seen the not so great debate, but it wasn't really focused on Ray. That was just everything, and he seemed to be especially focused on the sister of Rose for some reason. Like, she gave a great performance. Okay, she was in it for 10 seconds.
I was gonna say, like, of the scene she had, sure.
Yeah, not sure that makes a great movie, sir, but okay. Mike Gussler is saying, hey, Drinker, did you hear Elizabeth Banks got hired to direct and star in the Invisible Woman film? Yeah, I guess Universal doesn't want to sell tickets. Yeah, I mean, Christ, you fail upwards, I guess, in Hollywood.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? Because a lot of people were just like, well, that'll have stopped her career pretty much then. And it's like, no, actually. As long as, she ticks boxes, she'll be fine.
Yeah, I don't know if she's got something on some of these executives and she's just kind of blackmailing her way into gigs. But that's kind of what it feels like, because it's like you've probably lost about $50 million on Charlie's Angels alone.
Yeah, and like I've got nothing in terms of like a quote to sort of back this up, but I just got an impression personally that I was like, is she doing the thing where like an actor, once they reach a certain age, they're like, it's time to do direct. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and
very much so.
Like, do you have any history of? It's like, I've been in things. I know how directing works. You're like, okay, all right, fine.
I've heard people yell action, so I know what's involved. Yeah, she's I think she's about mid-40s now, so she probably is at that point where it's like, you're an actress, you're not going to be getting leading roles anymore. So that's kind of what you have to do.
Yeah, she's veering into playing the villain. She was the villain in Power Rangers, right?
I could not tell you, my friend. Never seen it.
She was what's the name of it? I know chat will know. I just gotta delay until they catch up. But it's because I used to know Power Rangers a lot better, but it's kind of faded from my memory. But yeah, the idea that older female actresses, there's like a trope where they'll start playing like witch-like characters, villains, and old that sort of thing. And she was. Chat's gonna say it any second now. I'm sure of it.
Damn this
Rita
delay!
Repulsa. There you go. Rita
Repulsa. Yeah. They should have got the original last back from the 90s when she was doing the TV show. She sold it, if nothing else. I'll say that to her.
Absolutely. And yeah, she was the new Rita Repulsa, and she looked weird. But I haven't seen that movie. Perhaps it's great.
It could be.
Yeah, there's a picture for you. That's it.
Wow, that's a unique looking individual. Wow. Yeah, great. Max Rokitansky says absolutely nothing, just a blank one, but thanks for your $5, my friend. Mike Gussler, did you hear JJ denied test screenings of The Rise of Skywalker? So yeah, apparently he's claiming that they haven't done any.
Yeah, that's not gonna work. He admitted that it's like friends or family, whatever, have seen them, and it's like, so that's already enough for us to assume that there's complete validity for sources to come out and say things about the screening. Yeah. Say, for example, you were part of a pretty large family, and JJ was the uncle or whatever, and he was like, I want to show you guys my film, and you're like vaguely interested in Star Wars, you check it out, you're like, oh god, that was terrible, but you don't tell him. And then you go home, and you tell a few friends, you maybe even say, for example, you could be a source for Doomcock or Jeremy or whoever else, and you're like, it was fucking bad.
Mm.
And then if he's like, oh well, it wasn't given to public for screenings. I like that there was this narrative of like they don't do that. It wouldn't be given to public people. I'd be like, well, you wouldn't know because they'd have to sign contracts that mean they can't speak about it whatsoever under penalty of being sued.
Yeah, and of course, there's nothing to stop them, well, creating a false identity and then just sharing their
And
stuff on Reddit.
yeah, and to be honest with you, I don't know why you wouldn't do it as a movie studio who's betting millions on a movie. It's like, why not be like, well, should we test it out with a group of people, see how it goes?
The the way Doomcock just described it when they had a sort of mixed demographic series of screenings, where it's like you've got hardcore Star Wars fans, casuals, people that have never really watched it before. That makes sense to me because they are obviously appealing to the biggest audience they can, or they're trying to anyway. They're going to want to get that range of opinion. So I can imagine that's how they're structured. So yeah, I'm not really buying that this has never happened. Like you would never take that kind of chance on a movie this big.
I imagine he's just trying to quell as much as he can before it begins.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean.
There's a few people that have asked me as well in the chat. This isn't a super chat, but talking about the Bond trailer that's dropped. Obviously,
Mm-hmm.
have you seen it, and do you have any sort of thoughts on that, on its
So
potential?
this is one of my traitor elements. Despite being British, I lost interest in Bond. I used to keep up with it. I think Casino Royale I really liked. Then we had
Quantum of
what was
Solace, I think.
right, which I remember putting me off quite significantly. Then I liked Skyfall, and then I didn't like Spectre. In fact, I've almost completely forgotten Spectre. Um, and so this new one's coming out, and I was like, "Oh, Bond! I guess that's still going." I'm more
Yeah.
interested in the new Mission Impossible than I am in Bond. That's how much of a traitor I am now.
No, I get it, and it's yeah, being British doesn't require you to like Bond. That's for sure. I vouch for that. But this one, it kind of reinforces my belief that Daniel Craig was miscast as Bond, because Jesus Christ, like have a little bit of fun with the role. He just
Yeah, it
looks.
felt like people argue that Casino Royale was almost a reboot. It was like a different Bond,
Yeah, it kind of felt
which
like
is
that.
fine.
Like, I mean, each of the previous actors, they've kind of put their stamp on it in their own way, and some of them were more farcical than others, but they all kind of had a bit of fun with the role at the same time. But Daniel Craig, man, he's as serious as a heart attack, and it just doesn't quite gel with Bond as being a bit of a playboy and stuff. It
Hmm.
feels like he's not really having fun, and because he's not, we don't really either. But you're still trying to work in all these fantastical Bond elements, like the car with the machine guns in the headlights and all the little
Right.
like gadgets and things like that. It's like you can't have your cake and eat it. You have to work on a little bit of self-referential humor from time to time. Um, but yeah, that's kind of the way they've gone. And honestly, I'm not going to be sad to see Daniel Craig go.
I don't know what's gonna happen with Bond, to be honest with you, man. Like,
He's going
is
to
it
be replaced
still?
by Lashana Lynch.
I don't think it's gonna be able to keep up, like keep making money. Honestly, I think Bond is gonna go down.
I
But
think
you
it's
know what do I know? Maybe it'll do great.
this is the thing, like, and there's a super chat here from Lucas Krychek that I think sums it up. It's like, how about strong masculine men instead of women? So Bond's like your perfect example of that for me. Like he is he's a man's man, and he is, strong and in control of the situation, and all the rest of it. And those are very masculine traits. Obviously that's not terribly popular in 2019 with a lot of people, and so there's an attempt to kind of move away from that, but you can't do that with a character like Bond. He is what he is, and if you try and change him, you'll just break him, and you'll turn him into something that he's not. And this is where it feels like it's moving. The trailer doesn't really give it away, because it looks pretty action packed, but there's just a lot of the comments that have come out about it, like this idea that Bond's going to be replaced by someone else, and they've brought in a writer, I think a British writer who's done things like Fleabag and Killing Eve, to do a
Hmm.
lot of script work on it. And that fills me with dread because those programs have been awful, like from what I remember. So it doesn't seem like it's moving in a good direction, put it that way, and it's moving away from what made the character popular in the first place. And yeah, once Daniel Craig leaves, I don't know who they can replace him with, and I don't know whether he'll still be Bond as we remember him.
I suppose we shall see.
Yeah, yeah. Reserve judgment, I guess, but yeah. I wish Daniel Craig would have like enjoyed it a bit more. He's like the only man on the planet who doesn't want to be James Bond.
Has he been public about stuff like that or no?
Well, at the end of Spectre, he was kind of like, yeah, I'd rather slit my wrists than play Bond again. I mean, that's straight up what he said, and yet here he is playing
Wow.
Bond again. So I guess they just gave him a really big
what was his
check.
reasoning? Do you know?
I think maybe it's quite physically demanding, and he didn't want to go through the training again, and he's getting older. I think he's like 50 years old now, so maybe he just felt like he was too old to be doing it now.
Yeah, makes sense.
Whatever, but I mean, God, Roger Moore did it till he was like 60. I think Pierce Brosnan really hung in there as well. So he doesn't, being 50, it's not doesn't rule you out of playing Bond. But if that's the way he is, then that's the way he is. Maybe he just can't be arsed with it anymore. But anyway, that is my thoughts on Bond. So we'll see how it goes. Charles Caballero's saying, because it's December, which Christmas classic would you consider reviewing? Die Hard, Rocky IV, or Batman Returns? Personally, I'd love to do Rocky IV and Die Hard because I love both of them. I don't know how you feel, MauLer. Either of those two movies appeals to you?
If let's just say I was in a scenario where I had the time to do that, I'd be like, probably Die Hard. I love Die Hard.
Yeah.
But Batman Returns, there's something about that could be fun. It'd be fun to go back and look at them. I watched Batman, obviously the Jack Nicholson one, relatively recently, and it's just fun to go back to see how different everyone's like perception of Batman comic book movies and execution was.
Yeah.
I still think it's a hell of a lot better than something like Suicide Squad, which is interesting.
Yeah. It's a very pared back version of Batman. He is kind of dark and brooding, but you don't have the insane over the top action. And you see him get into a fist fight and he can't even turn his head because his cowl doesn't work that way. So
yeah,
he's like a block of wood kind of lumbering about. It's quite good. But no, I'd definitely like to review Die Hard as a well-constructed action movie that's got great pace and good characters and good dialogue. It's right. You just don't get movies like that now. And Rocky for its absolute insanity, especially comparing it to Creed 2. It would be quite interesting to do that. What's Tony Wood saying? Tony Wood 25, just wanted to comment on your unique and very entertaining channel. Your delivery is like nothing I've seen on YouTube, and I hope for your continued success. That could be for me or you, MauLer, to be honest. I like to get drunk when I do my reviews.
Both.
What's that, sorry?
Let's say it's for both.
Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Very kind.
Yeah. Captain Smith, this stream needs some kind of drinking game. Well, I mean, I am drinking while I'm doing this. I don't know what you can do. Take a shot every time there's a technical problem. You'll be rat-arsed within about 5 minutes.
Every time we complain about something to do with Star Wars.
Yeah, there you go. We'll work in a few more references. Michael Rodriguez, would you pay to watch a cage match between Cecil Says and Gina Carano? Cecil was telling Ethan Van Sciver in recent Geeks and Gamers stream about how he could take her. Well, okay.
Well, yeah, I'll watch it.
I wouldn't want to fight Gina myself. She's pretty beefy.
No, I wouldn't want to either. I feel like she'd be able to pull some pretty tough moves that would end up
I think you
in a hospital. So
yeah, you try and go in and punch her or something, and she would just like get you in a leg lock and break your neck, and that would be the.
She can punch Mandalorian helmets with no problem. So my face, no.
That's it. Yeah. Don't want to mess with her. Right, Comrade Commodore. Thanks for giving me something to listen to while I work in this freaking wind. I take it you're in the UK then, because it's windy as fuck here tonight. Old Panther, doing my own video on Rey's character after discovering the people claiming sexism for not liking due to MauLer's Twitter, having daughters myself, etc. Yeah, okay. I think it's interesting to break down Rey's character or lack thereof, and see what actually motivates it. I've got my own
defense
theories.
wouldn't be this significant if not for the fact that it's a part of the biggest it's one of the biggest, if not the biggest, franchises right now. So like outside of Marvel, so I just feel like they're probably like, we got to defend this one because it's a female character.
Yeah,
It's
and
just like, just let it go. We got great female characters. This one's just a bad one.
yeah, that's really how I got my start on YouTube. Like I made a video outlining all the cool female characters we'd had throughout the decades, and
Hmm.
like within a couple of days, it got like 1 million views, and it just kind of went overboard. But that's what people kind of responded to. It's like that feeling of like, oh, stop trying to claim that like you're the first person to come up with the idea of a strong female character. Like they've been doing it for decades, and they've done it much better, and they've created characters that are believable and human,
Well,
and
like Vasquez from Aliens, who's like a supporting character. She's better than like the majority of the crazy like mainstream action female characters these days.
yeah, 100%. And this was James Cameron's strength, I think, back in the day, because he did the same thing with Sarah Connor of creating these female characters who are strong and interesting and who are capable at what they do, but they're still flawed, they're still human, they can still make mistakes and be defeated when the script calls for it. But they just don't do that now. They won't show them having any sort of weakness. It's the same with Captain Marvel. That was
Ugh.
a similar issue. Yeah. I feel like an unbridled meh right now.
It was funny. When I finished that movie, I was speaking to my friend. I was like, "This is like a 4 out of 10, and if I feel that way after just finishing it, we're probably gonna end up with like a 2 by the time I've actually gone through it."
Yeah, it's always like that when you start to break down a film. You just find more and more flaws and mistakes. The Last Jedi is like that. Every time I've been on an EFAP, somehow we always end up talking about it, and it's like we just go down the rabbit hole. And you could just spend days talking about it and still not get to the bottom of the madness.
Well, it's if a friend wrote that screenplay and sent it to you, you'd be like, "Dude, we need to scrap this."
Yeah.
Like the whole thing. I'm so sorry, but this is just not working. There's problems everywhere.
I think Jeremy from Geeks and Gamers had the best response because he was on that stream with us, and it was like, "What would you do if you were in that boardroom and Ryan presented that script to you?" And he was like, "I would say to him, Ryan, I'd like to understand how you've reached the conclusions that you have." I was like, "That is brilliant." That's like the perfect diplomatic response.
I mean, any of us would jump at the chance to have a conversation with Ryan Johnson because, good lord, the questions you could ask him.
Oh man, it would be great. You would never have a public conversation about it, but it would be really interesting just to chat to him, one on one,
Yeah.
and say like, "What's your real thoughts on this? Did it turn out the way you hoped, or whatever?"
I'd even want to ask him questions like, what do you think is the most like unfair criticism you think the film has gotten, but within reason. I'm not looking for him to say something like, "Oh, women are bad." But like, what do you actually like
Yeah,
think is unfair? See what he says.
yeah. I mean, I've said this, before. So much of the backlash was generated by him after the movie came out.
Yeah.
The whole going after fans and just refusing to accept any criticism and stuff. Like he could have diffused probably 90% of it if he just said, "Look, we tried our best to do something kind of different and kind of creative with this. Sorry, it didn't work for everyone, but no disrespect or whatever." That would have diffused a lot of people. But just going on the attack with it, it's like, what do you expect to happen, man? People are just going to get more pissed off with you.
What is that famous quote where it's like, "You found any of the criticisms valid or fair, or whatever?" And he just goes, "No."
Just impossible. Yeah, I mean, there's always that old video of him from 15 years ago saying like, "Oh, I want to make movies that are deliberately divisive, and I want people to either love them or hate them." And it's like, well, that's fine if you're making some like $2 million art house movie that's just all experimental and whatever. But if you're doing something like Star Wars, which has got a huge amount, depending on it, you can't take that kind of risk. You can't make something that divisive. But yeah, it baffles me that he was even hired in the first place. He's a guy with very little track record.
Yeah.
Like Looper wasn't that impressive. I didn't watch that and think, holy shit, man, I've seen some movie there.
I remember one of the first conversations I had with a friend about it. I was like, that film was nonsensical. And then they were like, "In what way?" And I was like, "Oh, the time travel makes no sense if you consider blah, blah, blah." And then they were like, "Yeah, but didn't you catch that part of the film where they say, he tries to point it out and he's like, "I'm not going to sit here with a billboard and try and figure out all the lines, how it all works. Shut up."
Yeah.
Like basically the film being like, "Shut up. It doesn't matter if it doesn't make sense." And they said that to me and I was like, okay. They're like, so does it's not that important. It's like, yes, it is.
Yeah,
Just because you say it's not, it doesn't make
yeah.
it not.
Like, yeah, it's the same thing with a film acknowledging something like, oh, that's impossible, and they're like, yeah, it is, and then they just move on from it. It's like, just because you've called attention to it and acknowledged it doesn't mean like you've now avoided the problem.
Hmm.
It's an interesting one. Mike Gussler is saying here, JJ said the rise of Skywalker will divide Star Wars fans. Well, that's news to me because I thought they were pretty uniform to begin with.
Well, it depends on, because right now the Star Wars fandom is split into loads of like two major sections and then loads of subsections, right? So the people who liked TFA and TLJ, the people who didn't like TFA but liked TLJ, the people who didn't like either of them, these are all like different sort of pools of people.
Yeah.
And I actually think that Rise of Skywalker is going to piss off everybody. Like, people who like TLJ aren't going to like it, people who didn't like TLJ aren't going to like it, and so on.
Is it that kind of situation of, you try to please everyone, you end up satisfying no one?
It seemed, well, I don't know, because with that comment he made, JJ, where he said, like, oh, I'm just gonna, fuck it, I'm just gonna do whatever I want. I was like, maybe he's gonna try and please himself and will please nobody as a result. I don't know.
Yeah. It's, I think they already set themselves an impossible task of trying to unfuck the trilogy after, Last Jedi. I don't see how you could ever come back from that, really.
Well, you have clean slate, and then TFA, you fucked it up. And you're like, right. TLJ, can you fix it? We double fucked it up. And you're like,
Yeah.
wow. Can we unfuck it twice? And then you go, we triple fuck. You're like, oh, for fuck's sake. Just give up.
just undo it. Just do a Terminator Dark Fate and be like, right, those movies, just ignore them. They didn't happen. Alternate timeline.
I'd love to know if Mark Hamill would, like, if you presented that idea to him, if he would be like, yeah, that's a good idea. Or if he'd be like, no, it's fine.
Oh, poor Mark.
Yeah, poor Mark.
You've really you put a downer on my day just thinking about poor Mark Hamill. Yeah, when I think about how excited he must have been to be like, oh shit, I'm getting called back to do Star Wars, man. Like this is it. Like I finally get to bring an end to this saga. And then he gets the script for The Force Awakens, and it's like, oh, I'm not really in this shit. But I'm sure Last Jedi, I'll get a fair crack of the whip. Oh fuck. And just like going page after page, like, no, please, oh Ryan, Christ, what have you done? Yeah, I've said before, like, I think, once this all comes to an end and the dust is settled and people are outside their non-disparagement clauses in their contracts, it'll be really interesting to see what they have to say. Because I think you'll get a very different picture of
not to mention just time in order to think about all of it. Like, there was that tweet relatively recently where John Boyega said he was unaware that people felt that his character was wasted in these films.
Really?
Which blows my mind. It's like, how are you not aware of this?
Yeah, like
people.
I'm sure he doesn't Google himself every day or whatever, but he must have looked at reviews and YouTube videos of his movies and seen some of the criticisms. It's an odd one. Yeah.
It makes me think though that like maybe that's their actual experience. Like all these actors that you just hear through filters. It's like, oh, do you know how many people hate this film just because women are in it? And then they're all like, wow, that's awful, that's terrible. Yeah. And then they catch someone like on a bus who's like, man, I really liked Finn as a character, and I just feel like they really didn't give him much time or development. And to be honest, they kind of made a fool out of you. Like you do a lot of like, oh no, and falling over and screaming and stuff. And yeah, I just, I really liked the potential Finn had, and but I think you did a great job. And he hears that, and he's just like, "I thought you hated women."
His mind explodes. What the fuck? I didn't expect this. Yeah, it's weird. I imagine, yeah, they get a lot of like filtered conversations through their agents and stuff. It's like, yeah, everyone loves you. Everyone thinks your character's amazing. It's like, yeah, take a walk in the real world for a minute. What's this? Da Love Doctor 69 all day. Oh, good one, sir. You guys should have a Watchmen debate on EFAP. I know PSA Sitch doesn't like it, and I bet he'd be willing to discuss it. Yeah, I'd be willing to do that, or to have people come
movie.
on
Or again, I can host it. I'd need to watch the movie just to make sure I understand what's happening. But yeah.
Yeah, clarify. Love Doctor. Is it the movie or the comic or the TV show?
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd definitely love to debate the merits of each one, having experienced all of them. Cannot wait to... Sorry, what's this? Eskimophono. Cannot wait to see what JJ does to the DCEU. Yeah, because he's coming in, isn't he?
Apparently.
Yeah, because it's like...
oh my goodness. Like this could be the tip of the iceberg for all we know, you know. Like who knows what we're gonna get as time moves on? Because I've seen sort of the end of 2017 to now has been this like there's been a huge increase in damaging IPs. It's not like it's never happened before. It just seems to be happening. It's like this is concentrated damage. There's so much happening to such a significant degree, and it's just like who knows? Maybe we'll have another whole year of it, maybe even more.
Yeah, it makes me wonder, like, because people keep asking me this. It's like, at what point is the tide going to turn? Because you get all these kind of old franchises that are getting resurrected and completely destroyed, either by sloppy writing or bad direction or politics getting shoved into it. What is it
Hmm.
going to take for this to turn around and for them to say, like, right, we can't keep doing this because we are losing so much money over it? And I genuinely, like, my answer has always been like, well, they'll reach a point where they're losing money on almost every movie they produce, and it's like we need to stop this because we are a business and we are losing money. I don't know if you have any
Well,
thoughts on what could turn it around.
I guess the question is like, how do we get back to a position where we were actually happy at one point, which was more so maybe more of an increase in new stuff instead of relying on old stuff. But I don't know if that's going to happen anytime soon. It seems to be the narrative right now that that's just the way to go, especially with the biggest money making things.
Yeah,
All seem to be to do with X franchises of some kind, like or just so Marvel, obviously, and then Star Wars and Jurassic Park and all these big. They're all the big hitters, and for some reason, I think right now that there's a bit of an attitude of like we got to go big or go home. So
yeah. This was my thing. I was talking with Bolstrek about this, where it's like, if you stop trying to make these insanely, like, budgeted movies where you've got movies that cost 250 $300 million, because you're under so much pressure to make insane amounts of money to recoup your losses on them. We're at that point now where some are tentpole movies. If they make less than $1 billion, they're considered flops.
mm,
That can't be a sustainable model where you could produce like 5 or 6 John Wicks for that same price and
yeah.
stand a much better chance of making your money back. Maybe not all of them are going to be massive successes, but enough of them will be to make it more viable. That's kind of where I see it going, is like kind of scaling back these crazy blockbuster movies to more manageable levels and giving us a wider variety of movies that are a bit more, adventurous, or a bit more willing to take risks, I guess.
And hey, it might not work out the way we kind of wanted to, but Joker being such a crazy monetary success, I'd like to think that maybe someone out there might go, hey, there may be something to this whole writing good scripts thing.
Yeah. That actually brings me along to my next question. It's for you, MauLer, from Velveteen Hussy. Unbridled Joker, please. Will there be
Yeah,
an
it'll be an
unbridled
unbridled
praise?
praise for
Yeah.
sure. It's just gonna. I need time. I got big plans for 2020. Things got slowed down and delayed and moved around toward the end of 2019 for video making, but
Hmm.
I've gotten like I recently redrafted TFA Part 3. I'm really happy with it, but I need to redraft it once I've seen episode 9 now to make sure it actually functions, and that's fine. Like it'll mean that the video making process will be much quicker for that video because everything's already set up,
Hmm.
instead of it being like because I usually have like a 3 month production cycle for really big videos. That one should be hopefully a month and a half maybe.
Hmm.
And that'll come after. I think my plan right now is to sort of do the episode 9 stuff, and I still haven't done this yet, and I'm running out of time. I need to play through Jedi Order and basically record my entire playthrough so I have some footage ready for when I make the critique of episode 9, which is probably going to be much more like the TLJ one, where I'm hyper focused on explaining exactly what's going wrong with everything specific to that film instead of sort of tangenting out and talking about writing and movies in general, which is what the TFA one is.
Yeah.
And the reason it is because most people have talked about TFA for 4 years. So it's like you know what's in the film. So it's nice to go like, hey, this is bad, but why is it bad, and where was it done well in terms of like just examples of how people write anything really.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of why I've never done an actual review of The Last Jedi. I mean, I've looked at various elements of it, but I've never done a full review of the movie because at this point, people have already covered it far more competently and cohesively than I could. So I'm just like, yeah, everything that's been said critique wise about that film, has been kind of done already, so I just won't approach it. My best way of looking at it was like, I can't absorb this level of shittiness all in one go. All I
Hmm.
can do is look at tiny little elements of it and break them down, and that's kind of what I've did. But yeah, it's a similar situation. Um, it was good to be on that EFAP where we kind of talked about Joker quite a bit, because it was like, holy shit, it's so nice to be talking about a movie that we all
Yeah,
loved, and we were just super positive about it.
yeah, and it was nice to have someone throw a criticism at it. Like, all the problems come down to a woman in the film, and it's like, okay, before we get like, personally frustrated by how stupid that statement is, let's check it out. What are the origins of the troubles that create the Joker? And it's like, well, it's well beyond one woman. So,
Yeah. Was that Hinema Roberto?
oh yes,
Oh, he's quite the
he's
guy.
he's a legend,
He is
an
indeed.
ongoing legend. I can't believe he's still going. He's such a meme, but there
Yeah,
we are.
he's like a dumb version of Yahtzee, just trying to do the same thing, but oh well.
Hmm.
Brian Gage says, "Take this for some cheap booze, high rags, and kick Jay." Yeah, if Jay's here, I'm going to kick him. If he's lurking in
He's
the
been
chat,
pre-kicked,
yeah. And
game
yeah,
pre-kicked.
I'll send Rags a message on Discord saying hi. Dirk Lemon, so drinker and chat. Which movie is the worst? 1, The Last Jedi. 2, Charlie's Angels. Or 3, Terminator: Tales from Genesis Space.
Um.
That's a tough
So
one, man.
are we talking about Genesis or Dark Fate there? I'm guessing Genesis.
Genesis, yeah.
So Genesis versus Charlie's Angels versus TLJ. Well, I haven't seen Charlie's Angels, so that one's on you to decide. But my pick would be, I've said consistently that Genesis is more of a fuck you to Terminator than TLJ was a fuck you to Star Wars.
Right, so
It literally deleted Terminator 1 and 2.
yeah, I'm gonna have to go kind of, because they're all like a similar level of, in terms of how they're constructed and stuff. They're all equally flawed. I have to go with kind of how they made me feel, and I had zero investment in Charlie's Angels as a series anyway, so I didn't care, and so I just kind of laughed my ass off through the actual movie. So I kind of disqualify it on that grounds, even though it's complete guff. Um, yeah, the Last Jedi probably edges it, because I felt so let down by it. With Terminator Genesis, it was kind of easy to just divorce yourself from it and just be like, yeah, this. Within the first 10 minutes, you were like, this is silly, and it doesn't pick up from there. And so I didn't really have much expectations anyway. Whereas with Last Jedi, I expected something from it, and yeah, that one made me feel the worst. So yeah,
Hmm.
which one's most likely to make me drink myself into oblivion? It's The Last Jedi. So that's the one that's the worst for me.
A lot of people are saying that, like, Terminator was already destroyed and TLJ actually destroyed Star Wars. As far as I'm concerned with a lot of these properties, even after Episode 9, by the way, if you gave it 10 years and then someone said, we're making a sequel to the OT, I think you could start drumming up some hype, start some support, and then they could destroy it again. I used to say that, like, you can destroy a franchise and then that's it, and that you've killed any investment people had in it, but, like, you can destroy things more than one time, unfortunately.
Yeah,
And Dark Fate, it was,
Terminator's
it
proved
was
that.
I was gonna say, like, Terminator's been destroyed several times, and yeah, turning John Connor into the villain as a Terminator, turning Kyle Reese into a meathead who can't, like, figure himself out of a paper bag sort of thing,
Oh
and then
yeah.
deleting the two original films. Like, these things are not, they don't go lightly.
No, that is it. And I guess this is kind of the reason why I feel moved to sort of defend Terminator 3 in a half-hearted way, on the basis that it kind of still maintained the same timeline of the original movies, and it brought us to like a kind of completion of the narrative where we get all the way up to Judgment Day, and then it ends on a sort of, yeah, it's bleak and apocalyptic, but there's a kind of message of hope at the end of it. And at least it didn't fuck up everything that came before too badly. Whereas, yeah, you get to things like Genesis and Dark Fate, and it's just horrific.
Yeah, I would go as far as saying 3 and Salvation, much less damage. In fact, a lot of people like to say that Salvation was pretty good.
It was. I think my overriding thing with Salvation is I struggle to remember anything that happens in it. It just didn't make an impression on me,
Hmm.
and it's a shame, because that kind of future war aspect is something that people keep saying they want to see, but then I feel like the reality of it is perhaps not as interesting as you imagine, because apart from big set piece battles, it's hard to craft an interesting story with that. The intriguing part of Terminator was this idea of like the future of humanity, and this big war getting decided in the present day, on a fairly small scale, because it all comes down to one person who has to be killed or saved. And then when you get to the future, when it's like that, it's just a war movie basically, with more advanced weapons. So that's why it
Yeah,
kind of
and
didn't make that much of an impression on me.
I just, it's kind of I often feel this a little bit defeated in the same way for Terminator as I do for Predator, Star Wars, and Alien, where I'm just like, if I always feel like if they came to me, it's like, write and direct, you have all your ideas, you can write. I feel like maybe leave it alone.
Yeah,
Maybe
I
just leave them alone.
I don't think you can do anything with Predator, especially. Like, it's just going to be the same thing. That's why the first movie was so
Well,
good, because it was so unique and so interesting and
yeah,
different.
yeah, definitely.
Um,
If we're allowed to have fun though, I'd be like, let's do send a Predator to medieval Earth and let's just play with that, see what we can do. And you know what, man? Like, what is just let's just write some good characters. Try and talk to Shadowversity. Try and come up with some things that a medieval sort of style castle might be able to do against something like a Predator. Maybe the Predator doesn't use as much advanced technology because of how unfair that battle would be. Like, and we could maybe make a good film out of that. Not just funny, but something that could actually be good. Why not?
yeah, something totally different. And I guess that was the kind of point of Predator, where it's like you've got this team of special forces soldiers with all these weapons and everything, and ultimately they prove to be ineffective, and it comes down to like a
Hmm.
guy setting primitive traps in order to kill them.
Yeah,
So
which gives us an in already for writing, doesn't it? It's
yeah,
like,
like,
well,
fuck it, just take it back to the Ice Age, and we'll have people with spears going after it.
caveman versus
Yeah.
predator. Let's do it. Let's have some fun. And then if we're allowed to go completely bonkers, I'd be like, let's have Batman, Predator, Alien, Terminator, all in some kind of, let's have some contrived writing reason for them all to be in a storyline.
Yeah, there's been a comic, hasn't there, of Terminator versus Predator? I'm pretty
I
sure,
think
and
so. Yeah.
that would just be something else. Like, you know, old Arnold taking on a
I'm thinking of
Predator.
if you remember in Avengers after Cap, Iron Man, and Thor fought each other, and then the camera pans around them all standing next to each other. Like, I'm just picturing all of the alien, just the xenomorph, the Predator, Terminator, just standing there looking at each other like, "What are we, some kind of Suicide Squad?"
It practically writes itself. Honestly, we should do this one day.
Yeah, there you go.
um,
$1 million idea,
yeah,
$1 billion idea.
definitely, yeah. Paul Feig would be jealous. So, Kalashnikov. Okay, guys, time to join the donation train. Drinker is one of my very few YouTubers to deserve it. Oh, well, thank you very much, man. I appreciate it. Qui-Gon, did Mace beat Palpatine, or was the Sith Lord throwing the fight? Lucas says Mace won legitimately, but I'd like your thoughts. Also, kick Jay off the roof. Done. Wow, so much Jay hatred. Honestly, it's great.
Picture.
Fuck
What
off,
was the
Jay.
question? Sorry.
So he was saying, did Mace actually beat Palpatine in the Revenge of the Sith, or was the
So
Sith Lord throwing the fight? So when ultimately,
I would like to believe this is my own canon. I'd have to check with all of the specialty people. Mace Windu is like top tier in terms of lightsaber fighting,
yeah,
and Yoda was like top tier for Force using, and Palpatine was like pretty good with both. And that I think he just narrowly lost to Mace Windu with that kick where he
yeah.
forced the lightsaber out. So I'd like to believe he genuinely lost, and that when he was appealing to Anakin, that Palpatine was actually afraid of dying.
Mm. No, I
And
was.
you might be like, no, he was in control the whole time. And I'm like, no, I actually think it's a good portion of his character that Palpatine is absolutely afraid of dying.
Yeah. Um,
That's why he's immortal almost.
yeah, and I always took it as Palpatine can swing fights like that because he is strong in the Force, and because he's an old man, obviously, so physically he can't really cut it, but he uses the Force to give him that kind of edge. But Mace is a better lightsaber dueler than he is, and he's much more disciplined, I would imagine. So yeah, I would have assumed that Mace legitimately beat him, but yeah,
Hmm.
that's what I would take it. Hex Appeal says, the drinker is sober and thus a fraud. I'm actually not that sober, to be honest. I've had like 3 or 4 glasses now, so I'm kind of getting there. But I don't quite have the slurred words like I normally do. So for that, I apologize. Chris the Don Crustinger, a question for both of you. If given the chance, with unlimited resources, what piece of literature would you bring to the cinema? Over to you, MauLer.
Like in what way?
I guess like your favorite book or something like that that's never been made into a movie. What would you like to see brought to the big
Well, the
screen?
problem for me is that I've not. Oh, actually, no. Easy answer. Something a well done Lovecraft movie, like a really, really. And I'm thinking. I know this sounds a little generic, but I mean, since we've got barely any that are strong right now, outside of most people will reference In the Mouth of Madness as probably the best one or one of. I like it, but what I would like, and this goes the same for a video game, by the way, because I've played a couple that just don't satisfy me, but you have your standard, like, maybe 50s investigator who's told that a girl's gone missing, or anyone's gone missing, it really doesn't matter, in this weird town. That's where she was last spotted, a very distant island town in the middle of nowhere. And you go there and everyone's acting kind of strange, and the movie just keeps ramping up with loads of little clues about how everything's wrong. There's ritualistic sort of elements to it in the underground, and then eventually evolves to the point where there is a ritual to summon this Godzilla-like ancient god. And I love all of the stuff in his writing to try and translate it, because the ongoing issue you have is the horrors are supposed to be indescribable. So how do you describe those?
Yeah.
how do you and you got to be careful with stuff like that. So I would love to really see like a really talented and invested writer, director, and special effects team put together something that could really well represent it, I suppose.
I take it you've played Call of Cthulhu.
Yes,
because that was pretty much you describing the plot of that game. That was
very disappointed by that game.
Yeah.
Well, that game is based on what's the story? Is it Lovecraft is Innsmouth or something like that? I forget which one it specifically is, but it's very inspired by the Shadow over Innsmouth, I think.
Yeah. See, I'm not too well up on my Lovecraft literature, so yeah, I couldn't really comment.
Yeah,
on
that game is majorly inspired by it, and I just like they tried with that game. It was really bad.
Yeah.
I was almost tempted to make a video about how bad that game was.
It had a good opening. I quite like the atmosphere and stuff when you arrive on the island. And
yeah, I think I was my enjoyment levels were almost over exaggerated at the beginning, because I thought it was what I wanted, and then everything was really thin and on rails, and I was like,
yeah. There's so many like games that have done that multiple choice plot line kind of way better. And this is just
it's not even real choice. Like, a lot of it doesn't really matter, and it's sad.
Yeah. Oh well, that there we have it. Eric,
the best you'll get with that is probably like a D&D style thing, where a DM can actually provide you some awesome reactions and different kinds of information on different attempts through that sort of thing. And I think that games may need more time before they can give a really amazing attempt at something like that, but I think you could probably find someone out there. Give them a few years, lots of money.
It's just, it's how much resources you've got to dedicate to it, because obviously, every choice you're spawning like multiple different versions, and that is tough to represent after a while, while still ending up with a somewhat coherent narrative. So I can see why it's a difficult thing to do, but then don't give us the illusion of choice, and then when you actually play it through a second time, you're like, oh, it kind of doesn't matter what I choose here, because most of the same stuff happens anyway. But yeah, I'll move on to the next one. It's like, God, there's so many super chats here. Eric Santucci, assuming the Rise of Skywalker leaks are 100% the movie we end up getting, what do you think's the most egregious or damaging element of the Disney trilogy? In terms of this movie, or just the whole trilogy?
I think they're saying the singular element that was the most damaging to the OT out of the 3 Disney trilogy movies, I guess.
Right. Okay.
If the leaks are true, and honestly, it's really hard to rank, but destroying Han's character, destroying Luke's character, or bringing back Palpatine and saying he was alive the whole time, I think that might be it for me.
That was, yeah.
it cancels the OT. Like it just there's no point in it. They could Han and Luke and Leia. Like let's just run this for a second. If they did nothing, the Empire continued, and then this scrappy team of Resistance members, headed by someone else, doesn't have to be Leia. And then this hyper powerful Force user called Rey, and this traitor stormtrooper, and this great pilot, they all come together to search for this MacGuffin set that gets them to the Emperor directly with Kylo, and he gets killed in whatever way. It's like the OT didn't need to happen.
Yeah.
And that's just sad.
Well, yeah, like when you think how much investment there was in the events of the OT, and then to think that like everything that happened in it has just been rendered completely useless. Um, yeah, you just think like, what are you doing? Like, at least have that kind of element of respect for it that you don't feel the need to undo what's already been done. That's where I think it really falls for me. That's where it becomes really insulting. Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, like if we were to narrow it down to the actual rise of Skywalker itself, like what are we thinking is the most insulting thing? This dagger thing seems to have me absolutely baffled. Like, apparently C-3PO is going to burn himself out decoding it because it's that important. It's
Like I said, man, we went through the leaks. None of it makes any sense at all. It's
it's our
you have so
magical
many
MacGuffin.
issues.
The space horses on the side of a star destroyer in the middle of a space battle.
Yep.
I just wanted to stop. Please stop doing this to us. What have we got here? Charles Caballero. Fingers crossed you do a review on the Clint Eastwood movie Richard Jewell starring Cobra Kai legend that is Stingray. Oh wow, I didn't know what that one was. Is this Clint Eastwood's most recent movie? It's like The Mule or something?
I don't know anything about it, unfortunately.
Yeah. I do. I am a big fan of Stingray from Cobra Kai. He's the new Hawk, and he makes me very happy because he's an awesome character. Um, but yeah, that's all I got on that one, I'm afraid. Mr. X, how much to finance a 5-minute fan-made short of Mark Hamill saying, "What a bad dream. Well, off to train more younglings." If only. Yeah.
If only.
God, I wouldn't be surprised if they reboot the movies in 10 years and that's what they do. Thunderhead, Doom Guy seems like a sweetheart. Hope to see him on EFAP. Is that the guy that
Oh,
was?
the sausage guy? Yeah. There are plans to try and get him on at some point, along with potentially other smaller sort of guests that came on as sort of maybe like encore in a way. But there's been so many episodes trying to sort out, and we had one cancelled recently, and now we've got like an emergency one coming up. So
Yeah, I love that he'll forever be known as the sausage guy as well. I hope I hope that sticks. But he was good. He was nice to speak to him actually, and he was a good sport about the whole thing. James Moore says, "I just wanted to say howdy. Also, hello, Greedo is an idiot. That is all."
he recently put out a tweet saying like people in 2008 were complaining that they were Mary Sue's in the prequels. See, the Star Wars fandom never changes. It's like I mean it's just amusing. It's like you find someone. There's always going to be someone who says it. For reference, by the way, one of the claims was that General Grievous was a Mary Sue.
What? How?
Exactly. I just be like, I'm very curious. What is your sort of criteria for Mary Sue? Like, that's fascinating.
I love the fact as well, like that so many people are like, but Anakin was a Mary Sue in the prequels because he could do everything, and it's like, well, do you not understand how that feeds into his eventual downfall? You know, that's the core of his character. He's got too much too early,
So
and he doesn't know how to
he was
handle
like,
it.
he was the chosen one aspect thing going on. So it's like he should have some kind of benefit over others. That's like the point of his character. You'd be like, oh well, they took it too far. I'd be like, I don't know. He got quite injured several times. He lost several fights. Like,
Yeah,
and a lot of people didn't like him. The whole Jedi Council didn't trust him.
yeah, and that's. I always thought that was a really good scene. Actually, it was a well-written scene that gives a good insight into his character, where he's appointed to the council, but they don't give him the rank of master.
Yeah, I
Because
remember the tension in the cinema at that point when he just goes, "What?" It's
yeah,
like, "Oh shit!"
because
And Mace would have been like, "Motherfucker, what?"
yeah, yeah, because like a more modest man or a wiser man would have taken that an incentive to work hard and knuckle down and earn the trust of them, so that he would get the rank of master. And it's like, you're getting to this level, you're not quite ready to be this other thing yet, but if you prove yourself worthy, then you'll get it. But
Also,
because of Anakin being
I'm
so
gonna.
arrogant, he couldn't do that. He couldn't handle that.
I am it's certainly not this trilogy, but there's a good chance we will never see a death scene for Rey.
No, never.
And I'm not saying it's a definitive trait of a Mary Sue to never die, but I mean,
Yeah,
Anakin died. Like, he suffered quite a bit.
yeah. No, she'll always be there as like an icon of perfection, and it's just lovely. Yeah, there's actually one here that says, according to the Rise of Skywalker leaks, Rey gets angry in ways that hurt people. Do you think this is a desperate attempt by JJ to give Rey character flaws? Yeah, I love the.
Like, there will be a section in my video, my expanded one, called Too Little Too Late, and I already know what's going to be in there.
But don't you just love, right? Even with that, right? Even with this supposed flaw, it's never like I'm not good enough, or I got my ass kicked there, or whatever. I've come up against someone that I'm not ready for. It's like I'm too powerful, and I'm just not ready for my level of awesomeness yet. That's as far as they can go. They're like so desperate to protect this character that even then they still can't give her a flaw. It's brilliant. It's what happens when you wrap your characters in cotton wool. Sorry, there's just nothing to work with. There really isn't, and I think this is what we see with Rey.
Yeah.
It's yeah, I fully believe that. Like Eric Santucci, Rey is going to get too awesome too quickly, and it's going to be destructive for other people who can't measure up to her level of awesomeness. So yeah, whatever, fucking. That's the character that they've created, so they've made their bed. Rose Tico is a commander in The Rise of Skywalker, paralleling Luke's rise to commander after A New Hope. Rose is the Skywalker. Also, MauLer, more Batwoman minis. When?
The next one should be out tomorrow. It's in its final phases of being sorted out, and it's pretty funny.
Are you covering every episode then?
Well, we're reacting / reviewing every episode. It's so much fun just seeing stupid things happen and laughing at them. But yeah, we've done episodes 1 through 8
wow,
so far.
that is dedication. I don't think I could put myself through that. Like, I did the first episode, and I was like, nah, there's no way I'm gonna watch 5 or 6 hours
so
of this.
Funny, dude. It's just so funny. So bad. And they've been approved for another 8 episodes at least, so we got at least another 8, folks.
Wow, it really is the gift that keeps on giving, I guess.
Absolutely. It's how not to do everything.
Yeah. Oh, it even with that first episode, I noticed it. Just the complete lack of consistency with the characters. The story doesn't make sense. The acting is incredible in a bad way. Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, Ruby Rose, like, not even trying to be mean, but holy shit.
Because I think she was a model or something before she got into acting, and
Yes.
that's where I can see her shining. Like, she obviously looks very distinctive, and okay, fine, but like, you have to be able to actually act like a human at some point, and she can't do it.
She has a lot of trouble, yeah.
And yeah, she looks so lost. I heard she actually got really hurt as well doing it. Like, she was doing a
Apparently
stunt or
she's
something.
allergic to the Batwoman mask.
I hope that's true.
A moderator on my server made the joke of like, when the mask is telling you not to do it, I think you should take the hint.
Yeah, because when I watched the first episode, like, she is wearing the mask, but it doesn't have the fake hair on top, so it's just like the bat head, the bat cowl, and she looks weird. Like, it's so out of proportion to her body. It's like she's.
You should definitely watch episode 3 specifically, right? A bunch of people get hurt in a building she's in as Kate Kane, and she decides to go back home so she can put on her outfit, but not before deciding it's bad that she puts on the outfit because it makes people think Batman has returned when he hasn't, and so she should get a wig and spray paint a lot of it pink in order to come across as a new person. And so when she goes and saves people, she won't encourage people to think Batman is back. She does all of that instead of just helping people who are dying in that building.
That's a thing which actually happens in the script.
Yep, and she's reprehensible as a hero. I really need someone to come into the show and tell her how awful she is as a human being. Like, she's such an awful person.
Yeah. Oh, it's yeah. I mean, it's the kind of joke like right from the first trailer that dropped was like, yeah, you're so determined to like carve out your own identity and like not have someone else take credit for your work that you steal all of his stuff and assume his identity. It's like there's no sense of like self-awareness or anything in it. It's just unbelievable stuff that they
Hmm.
actually commissioned this. Um, Bald man bad. Longman and the Lush. What a massive day. Thank you. Yeah, it's we're not
Mm.
having a massive live stream here. It's not going to go on for 10 hours or anything, but it is a pleasure to have MauLer on. So that's good.
It's
Um,
wonderful to be here.
Thank you. Nikki D, thoughts for MCU Phase 4? Thor 4 concerns me. Yeah, you're not the only one, man. Um,
Yeah, concern is the word for all of the MCU at this point.
I'm fairly optimistic about Black Widow. It actually looks pretty good, and I don't think we've had a chance to really talk about this, to be honest. So it brings me neatly along to that
Oh, there
trailer
you
that
go.
just
Yeah,
dropped. Yeah, see that neat little segue there, and that's after 4 glasses of whiskey, so that's okay.
very well done.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, what did you think about that?
I've got not a lot of what I'd say is definitive sort of ideas yet. It's going to be awkward to slot it in seamlessly between its Civil War and Infinity War, I believe. That's the timeline for that film.
Yes.
So we'll have to see how they manage to do that, because it feels weird that we wouldn't have heard anything about it. But then again, Infinity War is the end of the world, so maybe they wouldn't be discussing less, important stuff. I don't know how much it's going to do for her in terms of if we get a lot of character about her and then we look at the other films and go, you know what, that really did improve them. There's a good chance that could happen. I don't know.
Mm.
Um, and I just wish they would have actually released it between Civil War and Infinity War. I think that would have been cool.
Yeah, I could have also seen it come out after Winter Soldier, because at that point, that was probably the first movie I think where she got a really good bit of characterization, and it kind of fleshed her out a little
Yeah.
bit. That's where you got to know her as a character, and she became more sympathetic for me. So that would have been a good time to bring it out as well. But yeah, doing it now, it feels like a wasted opportunity, and it's such a shame because she's such a cool character. And I could see this movie doing well, and I could see it spawning a sequel. But again, it all feels a little bit pointless because you know what's going to happen to her, and that's a shame. But yeah, I've said
Yeah,
to
and
you,
she's immune to death in this film now, obviously.
well, yeah, clearly, and I've said to you before that some of my favorite MCU movies have been the ones that haven't been about like celestial enemies or sky beams or the world's going to get obliterated by some portal or whatever. It's like the more kind of intimate, earthbound, character-driven ones, like Civil
Yeah.
War or Winter Soldier or whatever. I think they were so well done and they were so compelling because it's just humans fighting each other and characters coming into conflict. So I see much more of that. I think the only thing that gave me cause for concern was David Harbour being in it and him just playing this goofy character that seems so out of place with everything else.
Yeah, it seems like he's going to be comic relief,
Yeah.
I would assume.
I presume he's not her dad or anything because in Endgame it kind of mentions that she doesn't even know her dad's name. So
Right,
I
he's got
guess
to
he's,
be related in
yeah,
some
like a
way.
drunken uncle or something like that, I guess.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'm cautiously optimistic for it, so we'll see.
We shall see, yeah.
Aside from the rest of Phase 4, not that excited. There's nothing in there that's got me eager to see it.
Outside of trailers tempting me along, the one I want to see the most is going to be the Doctor Strange sequel, just because the fact they described it as a horror movie. I'm like, oh, all
Ooh,
right, let's have a look.
okay. Yeah, that could work. That could work. Ken Murphy says, my two favorite YouTubers. No question, I just wanted to say thanks for doing this. Thank you, Ken.
No,
I appreciate that. Skyle says, stopping by to say I respect what you both do. Finished reading Metro 2033. Have either of you read it, or do you recommend anything similar? I haven't read the Metro books. I've just recently finished playing Metro Exodus, and I really enjoyed that. So that's about as close as I've got. I heard the books are really good, though.
I've not read it, and I don't read enough to be good for recommendations for books, other than like generic stuff like, hey, read Game of Thrones,
Yeah.
read Lovecraft stuff. Read the unfortunate events. I like them too. Go, go, go. Possibly Harry Potter. I've heard they're good.
Yeah, this Lord of the Rings stuff, that's not bad.
Yeah.
No, but assuming that the game is somewhat related to the books, I would assume that they're really good because I like the characters in it and they're well written. And yeah, I always like these post-apocalyptic kind of settings. They're good.
Mhm.
James Greeny says, "Thanks for all the hard work. Sorry, I'm a bit short. That's all right. You're talking to the long man here, so that's all right."
We can always make up for shortness. It's okay.
Yeah. Um, Kibakins. Hope the EFAC crew is enjoying the advent calendar. Also, hey drinker, favorite movie of all time? I hate when people ask me this because I can only give you like a top 10 or something. Um, recently I did Falling Down, and that made me appreciate what a bloody good movie that is and how well put together it is. And at the moment, that is kind of my favorite movie at the moment, just because I think it was so well done, great characters, it tells a great story, and some brilliant dialogue that really got to me. So that is mine. I don't know if MauLer, you have one.
My go-tos for this question before really like if I really wanted to give an honest answer for this, it would take me like a few hours, maybe even a few days to go through everything. But my like I said, my answers for these days are Terminator 2 and The Prestige is like two of my favorites of all time.
Not bad. Yeah. Does Aliens figure into that at all?
Very close, very high up. I usually say Aliens is my top five, so this is what I mean by like cycling through. I would probably rather give like a top 10, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, yeah, very much so. But
And then nondescript on which ones are 1 and 10 and stuff.
yeah, I'd I'd really like to do a proper review of Terminator 2. I've touched upon it when I've talked about Dark Fate and Genesis and stuff, but
Hmm.
to talk about why that movie works so well, I think it would just be great, and it would give me a chance to revisit a movie that was just so well constructed, and so well put together. It would be a good thing to do. So one day, hopefully.
Hmm.
Captain Bad. The way to do Bond is to set it during the Cold War. That's how you retain and grow an audience, but it'll never happen. I don't see a reason not to do that, if I'm honest. Like Atomic Blonde, I quite enjoyed, and again, that's set in the sort of dying days of the Cold War. I love that setting, I love that time period, and
Yeah.
the idea of spies and stuff. It so tied to that sort of time period rather than now. They keep having to like find ways to incorporate Bond into sort of current culture, and it does feel a bit weird. I don't know if you feel the same, Mauler.
To what specifically?
Just
Like,
do you feel that Bond kind of fits into like present day in terms of like the kind of threats we
well,
face, I suppose, or is it better?
okay. So I was gonna say, like, in terms of the character of Bond, if you were to tell me, like, oh, we're gonna re-release one of the older ones, I'd be like, ooh, careful. There's a lot of stuff in old Bond that's just not acceptable now. You know, in terms of his attitude or you know what I mean. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, we can't look at that as a character. We have to look at it as like this is telling people this is okay. Like, and then as for his adversaries, yeah, it's almost quaint. You have these like crazy villains that would represent maybe some kind of ongoing issue that's happening currently in culture, and then that might take us to a point of having like it's like, oh, you'll have a Trump enemy, and then all of us will sigh like
Uh,
this
yeah.
billionaire who tries to build walls around his compound or something. And James Bond has to jump over him or something. I don't know. Like, please don't.
Yeah, he has to enlist a bunch of Mexicans to help him or something. No, I've said before, like my favorite Bond movie of all time is The Spy Who Loved Me, and it's kind of steeped in that Cold War, like nuclear submarines all pointing missiles at each other and all that sort of thing. But the villain
Hmm.
is kind of generic, like he could be at any time, and he is this big megalomaniacal guy. And I love that. Like, I think that was Bond at its best, and it was a Roger Moore one, but I think he did really well in that role. It was the only time I think when Moore played Bond really seriously. So yeah, I really liked it. But yeah, I guess they'll always try and keep Bond up to date, which is a shame. Drinker, are you watching The Mandalorian, and can we expect a video on it? Big fan of your stuff. Thanks, King Kilo. Yes, I am watching The Mandalorian. I think we were talking about that earlier, and I will probably wait until I've got to the end of the series and then just do a retrospective on all of it, because trying to go episode by episode is a bit tricky with the timescales I've got. I don't know. MauLer, are you just covering it in EFAPs, or are you going to do videos on it?
I don't. So I have an interest in doing a video on it, but I don't think I'll have the time. 2020 is already stacked up for me in terms of schedule, and that's not including anything new that comes out that I want to cover.
Yeah. This is a
And so
tough
I think
time of
I'll talk
year,
about it on
isn't it?
EFAP. Yeah.
Like
Oh,
for
yeah, there's so much to do, and my backlog is enormous because every time people ask me about things I like or whatever, and I'm like, oh, you know what? I should do a video on Predator. I should do a video on Aliens. I should do a video on Terminator 2. And it's like, if I commit to any of them, it's going to take a month at least. Like, and that's a month where I don't get to cover anything relatively new or carry on with bigger projects and stuff. And it's just like, oh.
Yeah.
So,
I
this is the one thing people will be concerned, like, oh, well, if MauLer, do you have a concern about burning out or running out of ideas? I'm like, I'll be dead before I get to make every video I want to make.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I didn't intend to cover things like Ford versus Ferrari, or even Joker. I don't think initially, because I was just like, I'll go and see it and I'm sure it'll be fine. But it impressed me so much, so I was just like, I really want to talk about this. And so some of these movies just come out of nowhere and totally surprise you, and then you feel like you have to cover it, and then all your other plans just have to get pushed back and pushed back. And yeah,
Yeah.
there's so many things that I had like months ago on my Patreon I was telling people about, and then it's like, yep, sorry, I'm gonna have to wait another few weeks before I can get around to that. It's just yeah, it's a tricky one, but I mean, it's a good problem to have. Like, I would rather have this than, Christ, like, I can't think of a thing to make a video about because there's just nothing interesting me right
Yeah.
now. I'd be worried then.
Same.
Yeah. Have either of you watched Sunshine, the 2007 movie? Your opinion, does it deserve its 70% rating? Yeah, I've seen it. I thought it was fine. It didn't excite me or anything, but I thought it was quite a well-crafted sci-fi movie. And yeah, I'm trying to remember anything specific about it. Really, it didn't really make a huge impression on me. It was like that one where they've got to put like a nuclear bomb into the core of the sun to like reignite it or something.
Yeah, and it turns into like a horror movie toward the end of it.
Yeah, it had little shades of Event Horizon there,
Mm-hmm.
which I definitely approve of, because that was a drinker recommends for me. Bald Man
Yeah,
Bad.
I liked it. I need to watch it again though, 'cause I haven't seen it in a while.
I very much recommend it. Yeah, just as a horror movie that's extremely gory and very in your face for its time, it was pretty well put together. And I think the fact that you've got good actors in it, like Sam Neill and Lawrence Fishburne, like, they're not the kind of people you'd normally associate with horror films, I guess. They're not like 25-year-old, no-name actors or whatever. So they really sell it, and I think that worked well for me. That's why I
Mm-hmm.
appreciated it. Bald Man Bad saying, I wanted Gina Carano for Wonder Woman. Yeah, a lot of people did. I've seen like photoshopped pictures of her apparently, and she's got the physique for it. But Gal Gadot, she's got something about her. I, I don't know how to describe it, but it's like whenever she's on screen, I just like feel good. Like, I can't really pin
She's
it down to
very
anything.
attractive. Perhaps
Yeah,
that's it.
she's just lovely, and yeah, I think she really owns the role, I guess. I've not heard great things about Wonder Woman 1984. Apparently, some of the test screenings weren't good, but that's just a
I
rumor.
mean, from what I've heard of the leaks of it being like, there's like a monkey's paw where she wishes her old boyfriend to come back to life, and he does, but
Yeah,
he's in the body of someone else. I was like, what is this? Why is this your Wonder Woman movie?
yeah. I think they should have just done, the first Wonder Woman, which is set during World War One. That was fine. It was a really interesting setting, and it worked well. Now bring it up to the present day. Put it like post Justice League, and like, so let's see what she does now. But it's the idea that she was involved in these other adventures like way back when, and we've just not heard of it, because I think somehow the plot kind of erases itself because she unwishes everything that happened, and it's like, that's like the biggest cheat you can ever do in terms of writing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll reserve judgment on the second one till I've seen it, but if that proves to be
I
true, I'm not excited.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on, really, honestly. Marvel's confusing enough with how they're like, you need to watch TV shows now in order to understand the movies. It's like, oh dear. And DC's just like, you need to go look online to find out which one's a canon. You're like, what?
Yeah. There'll be graphs and stuff and crazy like charts that like have all the different timelines and all that shit. And then the TV shows like the Arrowverse is like almost this separate thing, and they've now got the Crisis of Infinite Earths coming along. And
Like, imagine watching Infinity War, then as we did, find out there's a Loki TV show coming. It's like, what? What?
Why? Is he a character though that you really want to see week on week?
I don't know. I don't know. It depends on execution, I suppose, but I wouldn't recommend it. I feel like he's a foil. He's always a foil.
Yeah. And I feel like they're going to have him in some really mundane setting, and he has to do like day-to-day stuff almost. Like that's not what I want from my Asgardians. That's
I'm already picturing like flashbacks to him as a kid and Odin and Thor being mean to him, and it's like, look, he's sympathetic. Like, okay.
like him. Right, Michael Rodriguez. The stream wasn't Geeks and Gamers; it was on Ethan Van Sciver's channel, but YouTube would have let me say Goobergate. Okay. I'm not sure what that means, but thank you anyway. Judo Cricket. A screenwriter has come out and said he uses The Last Jedi as an example of bad script writing in his screenwriting class. Yes, I heard about this. This was doing the rounds on Twitter, apparently.
A lot of people were sending it to me because it's something I asked for a long time ago, that it would be a good idea. That I think TLJ is a great source of like teaching people that stuff. Everyone's like, it happened. And I was like, okay, yeah, good.
That is just genius, though. I'm glad someone's finally done it, and I suspect that's probably opened the floodgates, and then other people will be like, it's safe to criticize it.
The easy counter you can have is just, well, this guy's using it to teach about great screenwriting, so there you go. And you'll be like, yeah, all right.
Yeah.
We all know it's terrible.
Ryan will be proud. I'm sure he will.
That would be pretty sad to hear, though, wouldn't it? Your film was being used to teach bad script writing. You'd be like, "Aw."
Well, I mean that's what he wanted. He wanted people to either love it or hate it, and they've come down on one side of it at least. So yeah,
it's true.
He's achieved his aim, so that's good for him. Good. Never stop, Ryan. You
did it, buddy.
Proud. Yeah. Sermon Vest. Drinker, you Biblius Bilitech of badassery. These are a real struggle for me to say, by the way. What are your thoughts on the fight between Cara and Mando, and Cara's role in the AT-ST fight? Is episode full-on woke from your point of view? Interesting question. I think MauLer kind of highlighted the weird thing that she has of like punching Mando's helmet, which is probably something you shouldn't do when you've got an unprotected fist, because
the best example is she almost punches him downward from the top of his helmet, and her hit is so powerful he plants from standing up into the ground. And like, that's hard to do whether or not you're wearing a helmet.
Yeah, there was moves that she did, and I was like, that is purely because Gina can do cage fighting moves, like where she kind of uses her legs to like flip him over and gets him in like a like almost like a submission hold or something. That's the sort of thing that a stunt woman couldn't do, or at least like a normal actress couldn't do. So I think it was an okay fight. It just seemed a bit silly. Like if you've got a helmet protecting your head, then you've probably got an advantage. Kara's role in the AT-ST fight, yeah, she was kind of just there, like in the water drawing its fire and trying to tempt it into the trap. So I think it was fine. The weird thing about that AT-ST fight is like you didn't see the pilots, you didn't see anyone in it, and I was
it's funny. I almost feel discouraged from like going through it, but me, Rags, Jeremy, I was discussed it with I think even Jay and Wolf. I've gone through a lot of like that whole thing with the AT-ST, man. It's none of it makes any sense.
It seemed
terrible.
Yeah. It seemed like it would just make sense for the AT-ST to just stand at the perimeter of the village and just bombard it and just pummel them into submission, because I don't know, their blasters don't seem to run out, and like the defenders can't take it down if it just stands there. So why not just do that? Like,
I don't even like. I don't like. Is it an AI AT-ST or something?
Well, you never see anyone in it, so it almost
it's
makes
really
me think
weird. And why does it have red eyes?
Because it looks scary, MauLer.
It looks scary. Okay, yeah, like that whole thing. I don't know. I didn't like that episode at all.
They
Um,
they should have had like like the little teddy bears from the Return of the Jedi. Like they should have just had, instead of like Gina Carano, they should have had one of them as like a veteran. And it's like, don't worry, I know how to take these things down. And it's just like have like a load of logs that come down and like knock it over or something like
yeah,
that. It's like we've been here before.
honestly, 'cause like I said, we watched it together, right? And so when they initially are like, right, here's the plan, we're gonna, and then me and Rags were like, wait, just you, Mando, just you sneak in, plant a bomb, or disable it in any way you want. Like, why would you need an army? And like the second they plan all of it, we were just like, what is this? What is this insanity? And the fact that they finish it off by using a bomb is like, oh, why did you just do that in the first place?
You
It
have to
was
get it
I
low
don't know.
down. You have to get it low down.
But it was low down when it was like not operational. They just decided to make a huge amount of noise instead of like sneaking in and trying to find it because he's got scanners. Surely he could find like an unoperational ATST. It seems to. I don't know. I don't know what's going on there. I think they could have executed that so much better.
Did they ever explain like why it was there in the first place? Like, do these raiders do they live there now, and they just every so often they'll come in
Um,
and harass the villagers with an
I'm
ATST?
willing to accept that a lot of Empire tech is just spread around now because it's not, let's say, uh, it's not taken care of. It's not registered. It's just everything's everywhere, and so different people through trade and black markets are picking up different pieces of Empire tech. I'm okay with that, but we could have used a throwaway line maybe.
Yeah. Um, the other question here was, is episode 4 full on woke from my point of view? Not really, but the scene that stood out for me was like when they're looking around the villagers, and it's like, does anyone know how to shoot a gun? And this lady puts up her hand, who's like the sort of head villager, I guess, or like the only character that we actually get any kind of backstory for. And it's like, okay, like, were you a former like rebel fighter? Were you an imperial trooper? Like, how do you know how to shoot guns? It's just like,
Yeah,
why
they
is it not
don't.
explained?
Yeah, they don't want to answer that. I think they just want to leave it as like she's got a history.
Yeah.
Like, okay.
It's like, surely the point of shows like this is you can go into a little bit more depth, because you're not like a movie where you've only got 2 hours. You've got as much time as you want, really. And it wouldn't have taken much for her to say like, yeah, I'm really ashamed, but I used to be like a working for the Empire or something like that, and now I've turned my back on that thing, but I'm gonna have to fight again. Something, but yeah, just nothing.
Mm.
Um, MauLer, I was gonna say, like, I know you kind of had until about 7 before you had to sort of sign off. What's your sort of situation?
I could probably give you another 5 minutes, I think, before I'm gonna have to go.
Okay. Yeah, I'll obviously work through the super chats. Well, in that case, rather than making you answer more questions, I'll round it out with you, and say, what do you have coming up next?
So on the MauLer channel, you got a Batwoman reaction coming up, and then a couple of EFAB streams probably. One that may very well have your favorite drinker online with it. Not going to say exactly what date and time yet until we're 100% certain of it, but let's just say episode 9 will be discussed because we're, what is that, 14 days away now?
Yeah,
Or
not long.
15, I guess.
Yeah.
Not long at all. So that'll be coming up. On my main channel, I was going to commit to TFA Part 3, but I realized that not only do I think I wouldn't have been able to make it in time, but also it's going to be made a little bit obsolete by the time episode 9 comes out. A lot of statements will sound as though I have no idea that episode 9 exists, and since it's like a new video for me, I think it needs to be given a little bit more time for that. But episode 9 content is basically what's going to be happening next, and a lot of it, and I'm looking forward to 2020. It's going to be filled with videos.
Nice. Yeah, I'm kind of in the same position where I'm trying to get as many things out as possible before episode 9 hits, because I know that's going to dominate the conversation for the remainder of the year, basically.
Yeah.
So it's like, shit, just like put everything else aside, just crank out some videos, because there's a lot of things I want to talk about coming up. But no, it sounds like you've certainly got a big year ahead of you. You've certainly had a big year behind you as well. Like your channel's obviously blown up, and you've
Looks
been
like the
doing.
same for you as well. We've both been doing pretty good, I think.
We've been lucky, yeah. The Longman and the
People have been interested
Drunkman.
in what we think on movies.
Yeah, who would have thought? But no, I just wanted to say, I really appreciate you coming on this stream tonight, and I know, obviously, we've chatted before, but it was great to have you on my channel and get a chance to, chat with you about various things we might not have covered before. So if
Absolutely, dude. I always like to have a chat with you. I'll always have you back on EFAB regularly as well. And if ever you want me to do another one of these things, I'm always going to be happy to do it.
Nice one. No, I
It's been
will.
very fun.
I will certainly be in touch in that case. And yeah, maybe next time we'll do a longer stream, but we shall see see how you're.
I will be on board with that. And yeah, sorry, just some scheduling conflicts. Different things happen with the internet. I need to get a big old blackboard next to my room just so I can write down dates and times so I don't screw it up. Not to mention time zones, man. Oh,
Yeah, it's
it's really
always
complicated.
interesting.
A lot of Americans and Australians, and I mean this applies to British people as well. They will literally say to you like, "I'm free at 7 p.m." and you're like, "What does that mean?"
Yeah, where are you?
Exactly. Then they go like, "Oh yeah, right, time zones." And it's like, yeah, you realize that's like a whole half day away from what you think you're telling me.
Yeah, I kind
Um,
of never know the good time to do things like this. Like, you kind of want it so I guess people in America are finished work for the day, so they've got a bit of free time to listen to it. But then, is it too late for people in Europe or whatever? Let's fuck it. You just have to like hope for the best, I guess.
yeah. I was just gonna say, like, I don't know if you wanna. If I leave the call, you'll have your conversation with me. Will just be on screen. Not that it matters. It's just as sure and cool beans, but
Yeah.
just so you know.
No, that's fine. Yeah, because we were just arranging the time for the call beforehand, so yeah, there's
Yeah.
nothing horrific there. And yeah, next time, who knows? Maybe I'll actually have a visual that works. It's weird because I did set it up so that it just shows the image of you know a Jack Daniels glass, but for some reason OBS isn't playing ball. So fuck it, yeah, it's not
Well, it's a part of your character arc. You don't start out knowing everything.
yeah, I have to learn. Like this is the
Mhm.
struggle. I'm on the hero's journey, the drunk man
Well,
hero.
interestingly enough, the EFAB tonight will be the first EFAB to have an animated cover on it, as in it'll be moving instead of static.
Oh, that's next level. Wow,
I
I'm
know, I
impressed.
was shocked to see it myself. I didn't even know it worked, but
Yeah,
it does.
excellent stuff, man. Well, thank you very much, as I say, and yeah, I'm sure I'll catch up with you again soon.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me on, and well, good luck with the rest of the stream, I suppose.
Thank you. I'll try and get through these chats. Cheerio.
Thank you very much. I'll see you, dude.
Bye. Cool. Well, it looks like it is just me. So I'm going to do my best to work through all these different chats and keep this somewhat entertaining. So let's see what we've got here. Give me a second while I look at the super chats. Right. Um, Taco Sunrise. Hello, Long and Drunkmen. Have you seen the new Pistol Shrimp video with Tommy Wiseau's Star Wars? It's way better than The Last Jedi. It really is, actually. It's surprisingly well made, and I really enjoyed that. Great little video. It reminds me when they had Tommy put into The Last Jedi as well. I thought it was brilliantly done, and yeah, I can't wait for more. I'm sure they're going to do a lot more when Episode 9 comes out. Drinker, come to Russia. I know where you get good booze. Also, MauLer, just finished that TFA analysis, you hack fraud. Yeah, I know that MauLer is working hard on this stuff. As he was saying there, it's his videos are a hell of a lot more complex than mine, and they take a lot longer to make. So it just takes time, unfortunately. So I'm sure the TFA will be along before you know it. Let's see what was the next one here. Right. Yeah, here we go. Thoughts on Steamboat? I'm not sure, to be honest. I haven't seen it, I'm afraid, so I can't answer that, Thunderhead. My apologies. Blessed Southpaw. Drinker, have you seen Toy Story 4? I haven't seen it, actually. I didn't see it at the cinema because I kind of felt like the story had already been told by Toy Story 3, and I didn't really understand why they were doing another one. I have heard sort of mixed things about it. Generally, it seems to be good, but some people didn't feel like it was a worthy sequel. But I will give you my thoughts on it when I've had a chance to actually watch it. But for me, like, yeah, the first three movies kind of told a complete story, and you had a nice poignant ending to it. So it would be a shame to kind of ruin that with a bit of an unwelcome follow up. But we'll see. Michael M, just blank, so thank you for your donation, sir. Michael Rodriguez, speaking of EFAP, any idea when to expect EFAP 64? Sorry, I think MauLer will be the one to answer that, but they are producing EFAPs pretty regularly, so I imagine it won't be too long. Dr. Zayadin, love you both, MauLer. Are you a video game voice actor? Drinker, get drunk on me. How is Dishonored Wolf? Thanks, man. Novels or anything like that, but I know that it's something that he has done. He obviously is Watchmen movie. Yeah, I would honestly love to have a discussion with him about that, because I think it would be interesting to hear what he's got to say about it. I sorry, it was slowing down a little bit there. Yeah, like I know not everyone loved the Watchmen movie, but for me, like it kind of covered the main elements of the comic, and I think it had a pretty thought-provoking ending, really. And I loved the aesthetics of it, the look of it, the cinematography. It was all pretty well done. So yeah, I would definitely have a discussion with him about that. Maybe one day I can get him on the channel and we'll have a chat about that. Let's see, what is the next one? Just waiting for Super Chat to catch up here. Right. Right. Bo Semler, at what point did Arthur become the Joker? I kept looking for a snap or turn, but I'm not sure if I ever saw it. Yeah, so the ending of the Joker is kind of it's open to interpretation. The general consensus seems to be that when Arthur was being taken away in the police car at the end, and then it gets rammed off the road, and he gets carried out by some of the rioters, and then he stands on a car and kind of celebrates. That part is fantasy, and that's I guess the point where he snaps. In terms of like the rest of the story, there's another school of thought that none of it is actually real, and that all of it was just this fantasy of a kind of mentally disturbed man, I guess. I think the movie kind of keeps it ambiguous, and I think that's a good thing, because I don't want it to explicitly tell me that stuff. That's the kind of thing that makes it interesting to discuss. So if they do a sequel to Joker, which apparently they're talking about, I hope they keep that kind of element of ambiguity there, because it's what made the first movie so interesting to watch. Michael Rodriguez says, wanted to save this for a bigger EFAP super chat, but you guys should check out Terminator Resistance. It's everything we ever wanted the movies to be after T2. So I'm not sure what that is. Is that a video game, or is it like some fan-made series, or what? Yeah, I haven't seen that, but I will keep it in mind. Party CV says the color out of space is underrated Lovecraft. Yeah, I know we were kind of chatting about. Yeah, sorry. I was just catching up with the chats there. Yeah, I know MauLer was talking about the Lovecraft novels. I'm not too familiar with them myself, so I couldn't really say on that one. But yeah, it's kind of classic horror, isn't it? So it's something that would be quite good to get into, I suppose. I know a lot of movies and TV shows take Lovecraft themes and they kind of bend it around their own stories. So we'll see what comes. See what comes with that. Suburban Casualty just donated $5, so thank you. Owlet Bookshelf. Question: have any of you read the Asimov books? If so, what do you think of the Foundation series? Ignore his inability of writing 60 times. Cheers. I haven't really read any Asimov, if I'm honest, so I couldn't really tell you that one. Sorry. Lord Hefman, if you were in control of Star Wars but you can't retcon the current movies, do you make current universe movies or go back to the old Republic? Um, I'd be tempted to go back to the Old Republic if I'm honest, because the current universe doesn't really have a universe. It feels like it's yeah, it feels like there's nothing really to build upon there. These movies are almost existing in a vacuum, and there's no kind of backstory to any of it. So there's just kind of nothing to build on. It something like the Mandalorian, I think, is quite interesting because um, it kind of keeps it ambiguous as to what time period it's in. It just seems to be some kind of point after the Galactic War. So I'm not sure. Yeah, just give me 1 second. I'm just making sure that the bandwidth is okay on this one and that everyone can hear me okay. Um, can I just check actually that everyone can still hear me all right? And I'm going to wait for chat to catch up with me here. Ah, good stuff. Cool. That is reassuring. All right, cool. So I'll plow on with the super chats. Um, Right. Bringing back Sheev ruins multiple characters. Obi-Wan, Darth Vader, the Emperor himself, and Luke again, just to name a few. Yeah, absolutely does. It completely invalidates Darth Vader's sacrifice at the end of Return of the Jedi. You know, his entire character arc was to find redemption and to rediscover his kind of better side that allowed him to destroy the Emperor and bring balance back to the Force. That was his mission. That was his whole purpose to exist. And it seemed like it had told a complete story. When you see the first 6 movies all in sequence, that's the story you get. And then now we're saying, no, I didn't really kill him. He just killed a clone, apparently. And the real Emperor was out there all this time, and he's just been planning other things. And it just seems like a terrible waste of everything that's come before. And it's just sacrificing everything that's happened in order to pander to your current movies and try and prop them up. So it's a terrible idea. I don't think they can ever possibly pull it off. And yeah, I'm looking forward to absolutely destroying it when it comes time to review it. Eric Stachini says, do you think that J.J. Abrams is aware of his own flaws and tropes? The mystery boxes, the MacGuffins, the lens flare, the super weapon obsession, etc. I don't think he is, because we're now at the point where he's ripping off himself and he's doing the same things he's done before, like with the Star Destroyers lifting up out of the water, just like the Starship Enterprise did. You've got the super weapons, you've got characters who don't really make sense. I think he's just a guy who's doesn't really have much imagination, and he just copies what's been done before, but he does it with a bit more flash and flair, and that's great for him, but it doesn't result in good storytelling. So he's probably surrounded by yes men, I would think, who just tell him what he wants to hear, and he's probably convinced that the stuff he produces is great. I think the fact that his career trajectory just seems to be on the up and up, um, no matter what he does, probably just feeds into that narcissism. So no, I don't think he does see himself as a bad storyteller, which is a shame because he is. Um, Ruthie Shalfan, very first super chat. Here's something to show my support for one of my favorite YouTubers. Also, I'm wondering what you think of Gone with the Wind. Thanks. Well, thanks, man. I appreciate that. Gone with the Wind. That's an old one. I haven't seen that since I was like 10 years old. It's an extremely long movie that is a big epic sweeping romance against the backdrop of the US Civil War. It's one of those films that's so, I guess, so iconic and so um, emblematic of cinema that it's hard to kind of just review it honestly, because what do you even compare it with when it goes back that far? It's a very different movie from anything you would get nowadays, I suppose. I don't remember enough about it, I guess, to make a definitive statement on it, but I would need to see it again. Um, Downfall Network asks, Red Letter Media's time travel theory or the leaks? I suspect the leaks are the correct ones. I don't think there's going to be time travel after all. I kind of subscribe to their time travel theory for episode 9. That's Ray and the others, they were going to go back to pivotal moments during the previous movies and almost interfere with past events to get some MacGuffin that they needed in the future. I'm really glad they didn't do that. At least I don't think what we're going to get is going to be good, but at least they didn't directly bastardize the prequel trilogy. So that's something. But still, yeah, it's. I guess if I had to choose between them, I would go with the leaks because at least it's still sticking in present day. So that's something. How would you redeem Ray's character? This is from director Smiley. That is a good question. I'm going to actually make a video on how to fix Ray as a character. To have her perform the same function within the movies, but at least make her a little bit more believable. And I guess I would start by giving a bit more context to how she knows about things. So we know that she's like a junk salvager, so okay, she understands a bit of the technical aspects of ships and stuff. It would have been good if she was maybe part of some smuggling gang or like some group of like space pirates or something like that, where she actually does get to fly ships, and that would at least let us understand why she's able to do some of the things she does. I would also have her lose to Kylo Ren at the end of the first movie. I don't think you would have to alter their fight that much to make that happen and still have them save face. I would have had him dominate the fight. She gets like a burst of inspiration when she thinks about the Force, and it allows her to fend him off a little bit. But then he closes in to make the kill on her, and that's when you get the big chasm that splits between them, and then that separates them. That way, at least you establish Kylo Ren as a dominant force that she hasn't beaten. She's only just barely held her own, um, and at least you've got something then. And I think also um, probably have her learn more and train more with Luke in the Return of the Jedi. Sorry, the Last Jedi. Have him actually teach her things and have her struggle to learn and struggle to master new abilities. At least then you would show her putting in some work and she's kind of earned it. Um, those are little things I think you could do to at least make her achievements seem somewhat plausible. And yeah, just give her a bit of a flaw or doubt of herself so that she lost to Kylo Ren first time around and she's um she doesn't believe that she's got the ability to take him on, and Luke has to show her that she can. It's not difficult. It's screenwriting 101, but the current movies just won't do it. Um, Blessed Southpaw. Quick MauLer, let's play Batwoman's theme. Yeah, sorry you missed him, man. But yeah, he's obviously covering Batwoman in a lot of detail. So yeah, watch him destroy her. Caspiness. No, it's the mask that's allergic to her. Yeah, it probably is actually. I think the mask just knows what kind of shit it's in. It's like, I don't want to be part of this. Um, Spice Weasel, love what both of you guys are doing. What are your thoughts on The Boys? Yeah, personally, I loved it. I did a drinker recommends on it. I think it's a great series. It's funny, it's irreverent and entertaining, and it gives a bit of a spin on the superhero genre, where you've got superheroes are almost managed like celebrities, and I think that's kind of what it would be like. So I really like it. I don't know what MauLer's thoughts are, but yeah, that's mine on it. Steinkrieg, where can I where can I get EPUB formats of your books? If you go to Amazon, you should be able to get Kindle versions of all of my books. They are there. It's the Ryan Drake series, and yeah, the first novel in the series is called Redemption, and they're all available in ebook and paperback, and they're soon going to be out in audiobook as well. They're recording the dialogue as we speak. Um, Dusan Milonovich, familiar with Terry Pratchett's Hogfather? Yeah, I am. I watched it when it was on a couple of years back. It was on like Christmas time or something. I thought it was good. I'm not a huge Terry Pratchett fan generally, but it was pretty entertaining. So yeah, it was fine. Poison Dart. To echo the previous super chat, the Metro book series is terrific, so well written. The games are great too. Thanks for the stream, Drinker. Thanks, man. I appreciate that, and it was a pleasure to do it. It was nice to have MauLer on. You massives watched Irishman yet? If so, thoughts? I know MauLer's watched it and he quite liked it. He said the acting was excellent and the production values were really good. I haven't seen it yet because it's so fucking long. I guess I've just got to set aside some time to do it. Tom Kazutara. Hello, Grace Longman. I'm sure MauLer says hi. Downfall Network. Twist should have been Luke killed Rey's father. Yeah, I could have lived with that. Just give us something, man. Something interesting. As it stands, yeah, it's just horrific. So I don't know if we're ever going to find out much about Rey's parents. The way I understand the leaks at the moment is like the Emperor is her grandfather, and her parents are just nobodies. So they're trying to like tie it into the OT, but also keep the chronology of Last Jedi intact. So fuck knows how that works. I don't know how you can be the son and daughter of the Emperor and somehow end up as a penniless nobody who drinks themselves to death. That just doesn't make sense. But whatever. Like JJ probably doesn't understand either. Drive-by commenter. Hi guys, I had a question on creating science-based superpowers or phenomena. How much does an author need to know to make it logical and consistent? Probably not much, to be honest. If you're talking about superpowers, you can bend the rules of physics or whatever around whatever you want to do. The only stipulation, I think, is you've got to be consistent with whatever rules you establish. So if you say that a certain power can't be used under certain conditions, you got to stick to that. So that I think that's the thing. You can create any fantastical world you want with any rules as long as you keep those rules consistent. It's fine. People can then get invested in it because they know what can happen and what can't. Comrade Commodore, I just want my Anna Chapman Black Widow movie. Yeah, I think we all just wanted a Black Widow movie several years ago. Drinker, you ever inebriated, yet silky smooth smiths of words. Don't ever change, man. Here's one on old Paddy. Well, thanks, man. I really appreciate the donation, and yeah, thanks very much. Eric Santucci. Some Star Wars sequel defenders seem to like what was done with Luke in The Last Jedi, but hate what was done with Danny in Game of Thrones. It seems like hypocrisy to me. Thoughts? That's exactly what it is. They don't want to see a woman get broken down, but they are more than happy to see a man get broken down because men are evil. That's pretty much the logic there, and yeah, I don't adhere to it at all. The things that was done to Luke in The Last Jedi was ridiculous. It didn't make any sense. The things that were done with Danny in Game of Thrones don't really make any sense either. So neither of them are an example of good writing. They are just writing for convenience and laziness. So yeah, neither of them are defensible in my opinion. Holding out for a hero girl says Pirelli calendar 2020 gets woke. No hot women anymore on the Pirelli calendar 2020. Comment. I haven't seen the calendar, but I guess it ties into this thing that they're doing away with like grid girls and anything kind of glamorous and attractive when it comes to motor racing. What the fuck are we actually supposed to see on the calendar then? Just like wheels? I'm not really that into Pirelli that I just want to look at their wheels. Yeah, it's just silly. Like these girls that do this stuff, they get paid incredibly well, and most of them see it as an amazing opportunity to get like a springboard into modeling or acting or whatever it might be. So to do away with that, ridiculous. I don't understand it, and it's just stupid. We're gonna end up living in the most like dull, generic, sterile kind of world you could ever imagine, and it's stuff like this is just a great example of it. Jordy Mellis, number 8, several equal signs, capital T. Okay, thanks. Tyron Beard, Hail MauLer and the other drunk wanker from AU. Lol. Cheers, man. I'm sure MauLer says hi as well. Baldman Bad. Also, I agree Ford versus Ferrari is my favourite film of the year. Until I see 1917, I bet. Also, shout out to Uchi and McMuffins. Yeah, 1917 looks excellent, and it seems to be that it's done almost as like a single shot. When I've seen the behind the scenes stuff, they're talking about how they've staged it so that it just goes as one continuous shot, which just seems incredible that they can do something like that. I do like these World War One movies. I don't think they get enough attention these days, so I'm looking forward to it. Right, what was the next one? Yeah, also love Ford versus Ferrari. As I said, it's one of my favorite films. I think Joker edges it, but it was still a good one anyway. P. Byers, boys, please adopt these acronyms officially. OT equals original trilogy, PT equals prequel trilogy, DT equals Disney trilogy. Okay, fair enough. I will. Yeah, MauLer is a Lovecraft fan. I have to ask, which of his stories is your favorite and why? I'm sorry, my friend, that you didn't get a chance to ask that. We just couldn't get through all these super chats. This is what happens when you speak to the Longman. You end up with very long conversations. So sorry about that. Cerberus. Drinker, you should do a review of the parody Star Wars short video by YouTuber Pistol Shrimps featuring G, a spectacular performance by the legendary Tommy Wiseau. Yeah, it would be good to do a review of that, actually, a proper drinker review. Yeah, it's brilliantly done. I love that. Let's see what else we've got here. AJ Schroeder, drinker, you bulbous but yet articulate maestro of storytelling. You're one of my favorite YouTubers. Cheers from the USA. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And yeah, so many people have tuned into this live chat tonight. It's been great to have you all on board. And no, I really appreciate it. And all the positive comments. It makes it a pleasure to do what I do. Mr. The Lucky Buckets, drinker, how do you edit your voiceover audio? What's your general process and what mic do you use? I use one of those blue snowball ice microphones. It's just like a kind of handheld microphone, I guess. It's good for noise cancelling and it kind of cleans up your audio quite nicely all by itself. And then I'll just record my dialogue. I'll edit out any pauses or any times that I've flubbed my lines or whatever, and then it's just time to put in all the visuals, and then you end up with a finished video. So the whole process probably takes a couple of days. I'm not quite like MauLer level where it takes several months to produce a video because mine are short, but that's the process, and it's quite good fun. Editing becomes a bit of a drag after a while, but it's pretty satisfying when you get it finished. TKE, drinker, you very nuanced yet verbally striking man at arms. I love these sayings, by the way. Knives Out hasn't broken 80 million yet. Will you help this bomb and review it? I will review it. That's something I am planning to watch. I imagine it wasn't done on a huge budget anyway, so it probably doesn't need to make that much money. But I've got this horrible feeling that it's not going to be as bad as I hope it will be, so that's a problem. But I will just give it a fair review, I guess, and if it does suck, then I will tear it a new one. Thunderhead, Google Steamboat Captain Marvel. Will do. I'll maybe turn off my screen share before I do that. Cerberus, MauLer Drinker, Battle Royale film and games opinion. I haven't played the games, but I have watched the films, and they're really good. Yeah, they're fun. They've got quite a dark sense of humor, but they are good movies. So yeah, I give them a thumbs up. I'm just going to see where we're at in terms of the super chats. Dragon's Advocate. When can we expect to get your novels as Special Drinker narrates his own novels in a drunken voice? That would take some doing. The guy that we've actually got to do the voiceover is terribly smooth and posh and well spoken, and I can't imagine myself narrating an entire book that's like 500 pages long. I would kill myself doing that, but I'm sure he'll do a fantastic job. I might one day like narrate a couple of pages as the drinker just so you can see what it's like. Um, I'm just looking at some of just the normal chats now that I've caught up. What am I drinking on? I am drinking Auchentoshan whiskey tonight with a little splash of water in it just to water it down so I can pace myself. But it's very nice and it's very easy to drink. Enjoyed your review of The Boys. Good, I'm glad you did. It was fun to make. I miss movies when women were hot. There is still some. I mean, Scarlett Johansson is proof of that. But yeah, Charlie's Angels was probably an example of the opposite, where you've got a bunch of actresses that I don't want to look at. Stephen MauLer saying that Knives Out had a 40 million budget and unfortunately broke even its first weekend because it opened in a vacuum. This is the thing, though, right? When they say a movie's made like 40 or 50 million dollars or whatever, that's just the gate receipts. Like that doesn't take into account like the money that the actual cinemas take. So when you say a movie's made like 40 million in its opening weekend, it probably made like 15 or 20 in actual profit for the studio. And when you say that a movie had a budget of like say 50 million, it probably spent another 50 million on advertising. So the reality is you have to make a lot more money than you think in order to actually break even. So it may be that Knives Out is still a long way from that. So I guess we'll see. Scarlett Johansson, yum, yeah. She is excellent, and that's why I'm looking forward to Black Widow. What do I think about The Mandalorian? Yeah, I think we covered that quite a bit. Liking it so far, mostly. It's got a few issues, but it's probably way more enjoyable than the movies. Uh, Yeah, movies need to make about 2.5 times their budget to actually break even. That is pretty much bang on. Yeah, so that's why it's kind of deceptive when you see that movies have made 100 million in their opening weekend. It's like, yeah, but not all that much of it actually goes back as to the cinema, sorry, to the studio. So that's kind of the reason. Um, Will you review CD Projekt Red's Cyberpunk 2077? I might well do actually. It's been ages since I've done a video game review, and I kind of miss it. The last one I did was like Resident Evil 2, the remake, so it's been a while. And yeah, there's a few I want to do first. I want to do um, what was it called? Metro Exodus. Yeah, I want to do that one because I really enjoyed that. But Cyberpunk looks pretty good too, so we will see. Uh, I think I am pretty much caught up. So what I'm probably going to do is kind of round out the stream there. I would say, obviously, it was great to have MauLer on tonight. It was good to do all the chats and to answer as many questions as I could. Hopefully, I got through everything, and I appreciate everyone who came in tonight to watch this. There's another super chat. All right, I'll do this one and then that's it. How would you write Luke in The Last Jedi? The idea of Luke confronting failure wasn't terrible. It's just the writing and stop sending me super chats, god damn it! It's just the writing and general execution was stupid. Yes, the the failure I would have had him confront wasn't so much that he just snapped and almost attacked Kylo Ren. What I would have had was that Snoke was manipulating Luke. Snoke was aware that Luke existed and that he was training the next generation of Jedi. And much the same way that he was able to join Kylo Ren and Rey together using the Force so that they could talk to each other, he would start to try to get into Luke's head. And he would try to convince Luke to turn to the dark side. And Luke was able to resist it for a time, but gradually this kind of chipped away at Luke's sanity and his willingness to resist until one night it all came to a head and Snoke almost got control of Luke and forced him to try to destroy Kylo, to try to kill him. But Luke was able to pull back at the last second and reassert control over himself. But then he realized that, he was always going to be a liability. Snoke was always going to come after him. He was going to psychically attack him through the Force, and so his only option was to close himself off from the Force and to go into hiding. And so he retreats to the planet of Ahch-To, where he goes to the Jedi Temple and he's using the Jedi texts to find a way around this, to try and find a way to block Snoke out so that he can return to the galaxy. And he's basically got an actual purpose there. He's trying to solve this problem that's been following him for years. That'd be how I would fix Luke a little bit. You give him the similar backstory where he's done a horrible thing and he's traumatized, but he has a purpose now and he's got something that he's trying to fix. That at least gives him something to do, and it doesn't then compromise his character. You're not the boss of me. Well, okay. Well, I appreciate the donation anyway. Thank you. And this is going to be the last one, the last super chat I'll do. Which guinea pig from the critically acclaimed G-Force is your favourite? Mine is Knobs, as learning how midgets are SJW propaganda was celestial. That is something else, man. Having not seen G-Force, I couldn't really answer that. But yeah, if that's your take on it, then fair enough. And that kind of brings me to the end of this live stream. Like I say, I just want to say thank you for everyone who's come into it. Your comments have been great. It's been great chat, and I've really enjoyed myself. And that's pretty much all I have today. So I guess I will round it out with my usual signing off. So that's all I've got for today. Go away now.